What's up, everyone? This is your host, Ghost, coming to you live with another wonderful video. How is everyone doing today? Doing well myself. Sorry about yesterday having canceled so quickly and early. My wife was having a very rough night, and when I woke up, she was like, "Hey, can you take care of the kids and let me get some sleep?" So I did. So yeah, so that's what happened there. That's why I canceled all of a sudden. Our youngest, our newborn, was keeping her up pretty late last night, so she didn't get much sleep. So, so today we're going to do what we were supposed to do yesterday, um, and then we are going to save the actual debate that Andrew Wilson's having currently. We'll save that for Monday. I'm doing that for two reasons. One, because I already had this all set up before I realized that he was actually doing the debate today. I knew it was today. Okay, let me rephrase that. Before I knew he was doing the debate so early, I apparently did not pay attention enough to the time that it was scheduled to go on, so that was my bad. Um, so, but also I'm tight on time. I have things I need to do around 9ish, so I can't quite, um, spend however long it's going to be for me to spend on this particular that particular show. So we'll leave that for Monday, and we'll take a look at it on Monday. That way I can do my 1.5 speed and be able to, do all that. So yeah, anyway, so we'll continue with the debate where we left off. I don't think much more of it is left. And then afterwards, we're going to check out the Turkey Tom documentary background information on Rekieta. This was recommended by uh, Legal Mindset, and I trust him. So that's why we're going to check out this particular video. Apparently, it gives a lot of background that is informative. Oh, man. All right. So let's get to it. Before we get into it, let's do a few housekeeping things. Make sure you follow me on X at officialwghost. That's the best way to find out when I go live, and you can also watch me live. And you can see my various texts. I've been tweeting a lot more, trying to be more active. And then, of course, there is Rumble, the greatest platform in the world. Rumble.com/withghost. That is the main channel. It's the best place to find out when I'm live and when I'm not, or watch me live and whatever. And then, of course, there is YouTube, youtube.com/@withghost. That is the YouTube channel. Getting a little bit of traction there, not much. Far more here on Rumble than we do. Well, I think it's like close to double the amount here on Rumble than we do on YouTube, which is good. And then, of course, twitch.tv/officialwithghost. That is Twitch. My gaming channels, although I have yet to be doing a lot of gaming lately, I've been kind of busy at night and exhausted, is for Rumble is Gaming with Ghosts, and YouTube is at Official Gaming with Ghosts. So keep a lookout there. Yeah, so without further ado, let's get into the video. Let's check it out. And yeah. Presentation, there we go. All right, so let's finish out this debate. Now, as my tradition is, I do 1.5 speed. I got the captions on. So that makes the videos go a lot quicker, and we can still understand every point being made.
Let's start with this. What actual policy did Biden institute that led to Saudi Arabia leaving the petrodollar? Can you tell me what actual an actual one, Rob, an actual policy that led to that? Just one.
It's not just about actual policies, right? It's
so you can't.
No,
so you
I'll tell you. And for their globalist allies. And so now the average person in this country's labor has been sold out to the rest of the fucking world, and we're going to suffer for it. Your children will suffer, which luckily you decided to have kids before you became a fucking lefty, or you'd probably just be having something in the ass.
Leading everywhere except to the point of the actual petrodollar. So let's start with this. What actual policy did Biden institute that led to Saudi Arabia leaving the petrodollar? Can you tell me what actual an actual one, Rob, an actual policy that led to that? Just one.
It's not just about actual policies. Right? It's
so
also,
you can't?
No,
so you
I'll tell you. I know this is bad form. Indulge me just once to respond with a question. If your country's lifeblood is reliant on a product, in this case fossil fuels, and the primary trading partner you have, whose currency you use, comes out and says, we're going to put you out of business, do you think it would behoove you to start looking for other trading partners?
Good, sure.
Well, that's the policy. The policy is that
that's
Joe
not
Biden.
Policy.
The policy is
that would be the same thing under Trump. What are you talking about?
Show me one.
The same logic would apply under Trump.
So
same logic. Yeah,
it's
the same
exact
logic.
opposite. Trump.
Because I answer within the confines of the hypothetical. If A is true, then is B true, then is C true. I can agree to that, but that doesn't mean that any of that's actually going on, or that Biden has even a coalition of policies which led to Saudi Arabia, who's been wanting to do this, by the way, for years and years and years. Their own crown prince has explained this over and over and over, that they've been wanting to move away from this far before the Biden administration was even a fucking twinkle in the nation's eye. Before anybody knew that this guy would be president, Saudi Arabia has been talking about doing this. So have many Middle Eastern nations. Tell me what policies or configuration of policies that the Biden administration has postulated or enacted that actually led to that. Any.
Again, I don't have to tell you the policy when you've already conceded that their posturing would be reason enough for them to go elsewhere. And like most people that defend Biden, what will be told by you throughout this debate is, trust us, all of this bad shit was going to happen anyways. It just so happened to happen under Biden, but he's not at fault for it. If it's so true that Saudi Arabia was always going to move away from the petrodollar, why did they decide to wait until Biden was in office as opposed to doing it when Trump was there?
I think that they saw that there was an opportunity, finally, when a contract renewal came up, which, by the way, even that's kind of iffy, to just not renew it. Just because Biden happens to be in office has nothing to do with the fact that they have not talked about this over and over and over again. Many nations have talked about leaving the petrodollar, leaving it completely behind. You can look it up yourself. Saudi Arabia has been talking about it for years and years and years, long before Biden. You can't name any policies or any even configuration of policies in a combination that actually was the deciding factor for Saudi Arabia. You can't name any. And that tells me that that's because there aren't any. There was no Biden policies which led to Saudi Arabia doing this job.
It wasn't just the policies, as you already conceded, the posturing enough would be enough to get them to search elsewhere. And the policies that he specifically implemented about the importance of getting off fossil fuels as our energy that we default to, EV policies, green energy policies, etc. All of this is furthering the promise that Biden made that he's an enemy of fossil fuels and oil, and he's trying to bury them around the world. In addition to that, you can also see policies that show the fecklessness of Joe Biden around the world, such as things like the bombing of a pipeline that we know the United States and their allies were responsible for, an act of global terrorism, global environmental terrorism, which, by the way, I thought you lefties cared about. But all of a sudden, when it's Biden and his allies...
You mean the pipeline that Russia bombed?
Yeah, Russia didn't bomb it, as has been admitted by the United States intelligence, Ukrainian intelligence, etc.
Then who bombed it?
The current working theory that we're being told is that intel agencies within Ukraine did it without the approval of the United States, which is bullshit.
Oh, okay. So that there wasn't a responsibility of the United States government or Joe Biden that pipeline was bombed?
No, the idea that you just tried to blame Russia for bombing their own pipeline and sabotaging themselves, right? And now you're trying to immediately pivot to, oh, never mind. Now I trust completely that Ukraine did it on its own.
I can concede the point without it mattering. Even if I said the last amount of propaganda that I had coming out of a war-torn region was that Russia bombed their own pipeline. If I'm incorrect, and the latest is that no, Ukraine bombed the pipeline. It doesn't take away from my point. That has nothing to do with the Biden administration's policies. What?
Ukraine is a vassal state of the Biden administration, and if they're acting out of line, then it's up to Biden, who is
a vassal state.
Correct.
Oh, who got on their knees and became a vassal to the United States? Is there official paperwork for the vassalage?
Haven't you seen his sniffing? I'm sure it's been up Biden's ass many a time. He sniffs quite similar to Biden with the little kid's hair. In fact,
yeah. So you think that Zelensky should have just rolled over and let Russia take over Ukraine?
It's not the argument that I made, but even if we could talk specifically about what Zelensky should have did, there's two things I'd like to say before we move on to that, though. One, anyone who's watching notices that Andrew hasn't made one offensive reason why to prefer Biden to Trump yet. It's all defense. Oh, the petrodollar. It's all a bunch of bad shit that happened under Biden. Him saying, "Well, I don't think it was really Biden's fault." Hasn't given you one reason to vote for Biden.
You brought up warships in an apocalypse, and then when you're pressed on the warships in the apocalypse, you go, "Well, there's not really going to be a fucking apocalypse. Don't go get bunkers, guys. I'm actually full of shit. I just brought it up because it's a rhetorical example of a thing I don't like. But you don't actually believe that that's going to lead to some global conflict. You don't believe it's going to lead to World War III. You don't believe it's going to lead to a nuclear missile crisis. You don't believe any of that, Rob.
It's not true. I believe that it will lead to hostilities and aggression from people around the world that understand the United States is no longer the hegemon that they once were. And again, I'll reiterate this point. I was quite clear in my opening statement, but I was quite clear in my opening statement, like I always am when I'm debating Trump v. Biden, that I was going to leave Andrew pick the areas of Biden's success that he wanted to talk about the most, of why we should prefer Biden to Trump. And this is the bullshit that he's come up with. Playing defensive. Well, yes, just because we're further aggressive towards World War III, right. It's not as bad as you're making it sound.
Yeah, let's go on offense then, Rob. How did you as a libertarian just say that, oh, you're sad that the global hegemony of the United States is being weakened? Oh, that's terrible. Is the global hegemony of the United States, this colonizing nation, being weakened? And from your libertarian worldview, this is bad because...
First off, I'm not a libertarian. I'm a populist who's libertarian adjacent. Second, a hegemon doesn't necessarily mean that we're world beliefs. I don't think that we should be. However, hegemon would mean both culturally...
You would want to weaken it.
Listen, culturally, economic, and militaristically, we should still be the number one superpower. I'm all for that. That doesn't mean that we have to be the world police. What that would mean, though, that people respected and feared us and wouldn't step out of line by aggressing intentionally against allies. Instead, we have the exact opposite posture from people like you in the Biden administration, administration, which is to beat their chest and rattle their sabers, but actually be incompetent buffoons that are destroying the United States military while they attempt to be world police around the world. And then once they cause all of these disastrous situations like in Libya and Syria, you then turn around and tell us, oh, we have to open our borders to take in the refugees that our fucking policies in the first place caused.
Okay, wait a second. That actually makes no sense. Why is it that a global hegemony, which is what you're saying, the American global hegemony is being weakened?
Correct.
It's being weakened by these policies.
Correct.
That, from your perspective, would be good.
No.
And if you were ramping down a global hegemony, why is it that you wouldn't institute policies which would do that?
Because the idea of a libertarian, which I'm not, being upset about the United States being a military, economic, or cultural superpower is nonsensical. It's how that superpower would be used. I have a problem with the constant invasion of countries. I have a problem with the constant world policing. I don't have the problem with the United States military being big and bad enough that no one would ever fuck with us. I have no problem with our military being so impressive that it's an deterrent to fuck with us and our allies, which means to
what does that mean? What does that mean? Do we need, in order to be the most powerful military so nobody ever fucks with us, do we need to be in 146 countries? If not, how many do we need to be in? How many?
Very few. How about
how many is that? How many is very few? 10, 12, 13?
Sure.
You sure? That's the answer is sure?
Correct. The specific number, I don't think we need bases in almost any country. I have no problem in first world countries that we're allied with having sort of a shared communication and military where we have some sort of partial setup of bases in those countries. What we shouldn't be doing is having military bases in, 400 something around the globe. I don't think that we should be doing that. It's certainly, as we've expanded the amount of military bases, it hasn't led to the increase in United States hard power. In fact, quite the opposite. The difference between me and you is this. You'll defend things like the disastrous Afghanistan policy that was 20 years of 17 different generals telling us that we're kicking ass in Afghanistan, we're doing
let's get into Afghanistan,
that actually led to the United States hegemony being weakened. I would say that it would help United States, both economic, cultural, and hard power, to not be in a disastrous country like Afghanistan and actually have our troops back home protecting our border, which would cause more fear and respect to people.
You mean the same Afghanistan that Donald J. Trump promised us he was going to pull our troops out of, and then it turns out he couldn't get his own generals to listen to him because they had so little respect for him as the commander-in-chief, and were unwilling to follow those orders because they considered him unlawful, so they just didn't follow him? He was so ineffective, he didn't even know that we hadn't pulled out of Afghanistan. Some commander-in-chief, Rob.
You're talking about Syria. He didn't realize that they hadn't pulled out of Syria.
No, I'm talking about Afghanistan.
So wait, your argument is
the ramp down in Afghanistan, which basically never actually happened.
That's right. You said that Trump was so incompetent that he was unaware that we didn't pull out of Afghanistan.
Yeah, that we did not.
I think he knew that we didn't.
That's significant. No, not until he was told. He was finally told months later. No, we really didn't pull out of this.
He never expected. The timetable was always after his presidency for the withdrawal of Afghanistan. Now, in Syria, you're correct. But both of these examples, even if I were to take your example at face value, just shows the corruption of the people that are running the Biden administration. Remember, Biden's just a dementia-addled vegetable. The people running the Biden administration are unelected bureaucrats, those that resisted lawful orders from Trump. If you watch the Trump impeachment, you can see the State Department saying over and over, Trump went against our foreign policy. That's the fundamental problem with this country.
All right, we got like 20 minutes left. I'm not too read in on any of this stuff, so that's why I'm really quiet, because I just don't know any of this stuff. I don't really have a comment on it.
Unelected bureaucrats that don't have our interest at heart and want to attack things like Christianity and family values are actually running the country.
You mean the deep state?
That's one word.
Yeah, I mean, isn't that a word that we could use, which would essentially take all the unelected bureaucrats who are appointed in lifelong positions in order to dictate foreign policy over extended generations because they're in power for so long? The quote deep state, right?
Correct.
And that would be part of the swamp, right, Rob?
That's correct.
Yeah, how much of that got drained by your buddy Trump?
Trump did a terrible job. In fact, I'll even go further than that. If Trump's elected again, I would say the chances of him actually draining the swamp in any meaningful way, probably not that high again. The difference is this. If you're going to be in the unenviable position where you say Joe Biden is ran by people that are the swamp and is making the swamp worse, and Trump just won't be able to deal with them as much as he should, that's still a reason to prefer Donald Trump. And who knows, maybe this time, because he now understands just how pervasive it is through examples that you're celebrating, such as generals stabbing him in the back and refusing to listen to his lawful orders. Perhaps next time he'll do what's necessary and actually get rid of these people, unleash classified.
Why in the world would it Trump?
No, he won't get rid of him.
Base ever elect a guy in office again who made the promise? There's two major promises made by the Trump administration. Both of them were objective failures. The first was on immigration and building the wall. He completely failed. He failed at building the wall. He failed at getting rid of the immigration problem in the United States. He failed over and over and over and over again.
I wouldn't really say that was accurate. He got rid of more immigrants than Joe Biden did and prevented more immigrants from going in. Well, maybe he didn't get rid of more immigrants than Joe Biden did, but there was that. If you let a bunch of people in and then kick them out, doesn't really count, does it?
State Department was so ineffective he couldn't even put a travel ban during a heightened terror alert on Muslims from entering into the nation. That's how.
No, he was able to do that. That was ended up being said. Yeah, that's good to go.
How ineffective his own attorneys were, his own administration was. He completely and miserably failed on his immigration policy, and he didn't drain a single person out of the swamp, not one. He was an objective failure long before his impeachment. I don't know how he could ever say anything to the opposite of that. Why the fuck would you ever give him another chance, Rob?
Because the alternative is the swamp. Right? That'd be like saying, would you rather have a cop that's ineffectual at stopping rapists or a rapist? Right? And so I agree with you. I would have preferred Vivek Ramaswamy or Ron DeSantis over Donald Trump. Probably. Not so sure about the Sands, but probably that would be the case. But yeah, I've argued what you've done is you've proved what my worldview has been for a decade, which is how corrupt these institutions are. Now when it's been thrown in our face, which is exactly the best part of a Trump presidency, it made it indisputable where even lefties like you have to admit, okay, this is real, because for years and years you said that's not true. There are actors within the deep state, that's a conspiracy, that would be unwilling to listen to a president. All of a sudden when Trump's elected, we have Chuck Schumer, the head of the opposition, go on national television and tell us that Donald Trump can't even criticize the FBI because they'll find 6 ways of Sunday at getting back him, which is exactly what they did.
Yeah, he's the opposing party. His job is to go out and ridicule the president of the United States, not necessarily to work with him, especially if he has policies which he considers to be a threat to the United States. That's his fucking job, Rob.
What's the relevancy to what I'm saying here? Of course, Chuck Schumer is going to be politically opposed to Donald Trump. That's different than saying the people that operate under Trump in the executive branch cannot be criticized by the president because they will sabotage the president, which is what
Chuck
Schumer
Schumer
was saying.
It had no enforcement of policy. He's allowed to make whatever fucking criticism.
Of course, he's allowed to say that. That's not a criticism. That's him giving a warning to the United States and to Donald Trump, the people of the United States and Donald Trump, just who runs the show. That's exactly what was going on in the proofs and the pudding.
Of course, they run the show. They're the sitting senators and congressmen of the United States.
The intelligences.
No,
that's what we're talking about specifically.
You shouldn't go after your own intelligentsia, which you put in place. Okay, under your own policies, you shouldn't be at that point going after them. Your appointments. Okay, because if you do, they tend to have 6 ways from Sunday of getting back at you. And what that means, very simply, right, is that they can go out and say, look, he gave all sorts of incredibly crazy fucking orders and things like this. That's why his administration is a mess. I can't even see why you would have a problem with that. If they felt like Trump was engaging in a dereliction of duty, their job as intelligentsia, wouldn't it be to tell the American people that, Rob?
No, which is exactly
no.
Listen, what? No, their job would not be to, while they're in office, tell the American people that. Their job would be to resign, and then, like any civilian, they could voice their opinions if they wanted. Instead, what they did was unlawfully sabotage, including doing things like spying on the president of the United States, leaking untold amounts of crimes to the press. Look, I'll concede your point that Trump didn't do.
They weren't spying on Trump. Barr never was able to prove that. He never proved it.
That's not true. They spied on Trump. Here's what we know. We know, for example, that they did. We could right out of the gate with the Alpha Bank story. We know that the people that were connected to Hillary Clinton, that were working with her, that were the tech guy that went in. We know that he was getting DNS data straight from Mar-a-Lago, Trump Tower, and from Trump's White House office while he was there. So they spied on those portions. We absolutely have definitive proof. The idea that they spied on Trump's team, which is also definitive proof, and we know that that legally gives them the right to the two.
Let's slow down. What definitive proof do you have that the intelligence agencies of the United States were spying on Trump in a way which was unlawful?
The DNS data that they were spying on, the person connected to Hillary Clinton was like the metadata that comes from the DNS data that comes on computers. Secondly, we could infer that because they were spying on his team, and lawfully, if once you get those warrants to spy, you have a 2-hop rule where you're allowed to get all communications between the target of the warrant and everyone they've talked to, and then everyone those people have talked to. That gave them access to all communications within the Trump campaign.
Okay, Barr said something very similar to this. But when Barr was sitting in front of Congress and he was asked to demonstrate this, Rob, he fucking couldn't. He couldn't demonstrate it. They gave him months to demonstrate it. He never could. He could never show definitive proof. He could never show anything. They could never even show that there was FISA warrants. They couldn't prove any of this.
It's not true. It's not true. They conceded. That's even James Comey's admitted that the FISA warrants were illegal. Like, it's just definitive. The IG Horowitz admitted it. The Durham report admitted it. They're literally the FISA warrants. No, that is not true. You're just incorrect. I'll again remind you that Andrew is once more playing defense. I'm being generous and allowing him what to talk about. Now we've got to the point of, okay, they spied on Trump's team, but maybe the reports didn't say exactly.
No, they didn't spy on Trump's team. There's never been definitive proof that they've spied on Trump's team.
They've admitted it. I don't know what to say. Just because
they haven't
just because you don't know what a man and a woman is, right? And the only fangirls that you debate and whatever apparently brainwashed you.
Now, again, remember, this is like more of a friendly debate because they're both friends. That's why he's making these dumb ad homs or whatever that like are irrelevant. I really look forward to see. 'Cause, again, Andrew is actually pro-Trump. So what he's doing here is doing a mock debate, and he's debating from the other perspective to shore up his own. So that's all that's going on.
That objective reality doesn't exist for the rest of us. Yes, they definitively admitted that those FISA warrants
couldn't demonstrate it ever. He's never been able to demonstrate that.
What are you talking about? The IG at the time that Barr was still in office showed that these FISA warrants were illegal. The head of the people that signed off on it, like James Comey, who signed 2 of those warrants, admitted that he wouldn't have done them and they were illegal.
Wait. The 2 James Comey warrants were for what?
To spy on Trump's team. Carter Page.
No. What were they precisely to do?
They were FISA warrants against Carter Page.
Carter Page.
Correct.
Not against. That's not spying on Trump. That's not spying on Trump.
You're now
arguing semantics. No. That's somebody in the that's somebody who's in the administration itself, right? Who they believed, had some kind of issue going on, foreign issue with Russia, something like this. That's not spying on Trump. That's what Trump declared. He said he was spied on, and that's the proof I'm looking for. Where is it?
So you're all over the map. One, you're saying that there was no evidence that they spied, and that it wasn't illegal, and no one admitted it. Now you're saying, oh no, I guess you're conceding that they did admit it, and that did occur, but it was just to Carter Page, and it wasn't to Trump or the rest of his team. It's nonsensical, and it's irrelevant anyway.
How is that nonsensical?
It's nonsensical because it legally gave them the right to have communication access between Carter Page, everyone he talked to, and everyone those people talk to. And the fact that we saw leaks,
that's not spying. That's you suspect somebody of being a criminal or engaging in criminal activity. You're going to tap their electronics.
Define spying.
I mean, technically, it is spying. It's legal spying, but it is spying.
Well, I mean, I would say that that spying would have a nefarious connotation of you looking in on somebody.
Why is it nefarious?
Well, I would say that you would have a nefarious connotation to it. So spying, I would use as a military term more than I would use it as a domestic term.
I would say a clandestine surveillance of a person or entity.
Okay.
Does that sound fair?
Okay.
In other words, you're surveying someone without their knowledge.
Yeah, but the difference is, let me ask you this. If that is the only working definition that we're going with, the semantic definition, I think I'll just grant it, because then spying itself would not be even problematic, right? Because in this case, then you're just saying that if the FBI, taps a fucking cell phone of a drug dealer, they're spying on him.
Right. That is true.
Okay.
And it is true.
If that's the case, if that's the case, then I could just grant this. And that doesn't sound like it's in any way nefarious. It sounds like it's run-of-the-mill law enforcement stuff, dude.
Okay, so two things. One, the idea that they spied on a presidential campaign and presidential team is a big deal, because you could say, well, theoretically, it could be law because we haven't had that told to the American people that a president's ever lived through that. Secondly, this specific spying, which you acknowledge is a simple yes, no, spying can be nefarious.
Yeah, by this if we're going to operate off of this definition, yeah, I could say it could be nefarious, it could not be nefarious.
So then given the specifics of this one, was this spying nefarious?
I don't think so. It sounds like it's a kind of routine run-of-the-mill law enforcement.
Then explain why an IG concluded it was illegal.
Yeah, but just because something is illegal doesn't mean that it's nefarious. So I can give you an example of this too. Let's say a police officer had what he considered a random suspicion that something was going on inside of a house. He followed his intuition. He kicked in a door. I wouldn't say that he did anything nefarious or even anything problematic, but it could still be ruled as being an illegal action.
Nefarious, maybe I would concede in that. Problematic, it would certainly be problematic, at least from a legal standpoint.
Yeah, it could be problematic legally, but I'm not saying, I don't think it's nefarious.
When we see that it's illegal, and then when we see that also the IG report and other reports and things that you can see publicly yourself shows that at the top level of the FBI, there was a clear bias against Donald Trump, including one of the agents that was the on-the-ground person tasked with investigating him and Hillary Clinton, talking about the need for a, quote, insurance policy to prevent Donald Trump from coming into office. When you see that they then took illegal actions to spy on the president of the United States' team, it's clear that it was with nefarious intent. It's clear that it was illegal. It's clear that it was unprecedented. And it's clear that it shows that this deep state that you would mock me for saying actually exists.
I hate to break in, but okay, you're referring to the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act warrants that were given during the time, right? Is that what you're referring to?
Correct.
What exactly makes these warrants illegal?
Because the signing off on, there was various things, such as the procedures that the FBI had to follow were not followed. So 117 times they violated what's called the Woods procedure, which is that you need to constantly recheck the evidence that you're using to ensure that FISA warrant was obtained.
So then, let me finish. It was just procedurally illegal, but that doesn't mean that it was actually the intent of it was wrong.
No, that's not true. That's not true.
It is true.
Like, let me give you a specific. This is what the IG. So there are two. One, we've actually found someone criminally guilty. His name's Kevin Kleinsmith. What he did was change language to say the opposite of the truth in order to obtain the warrant. They asked the CIA if Carter Page worked with them to go after Russian assets. The CIA sent an email that basically said yes, and Kevin Kleinsmith changed that to say no. So that was actually, he was found criminally accountable for that. The example that was more egregious that the IG Horowitz gave, though, was the fact that the primary subsource was a suspected Russian spy by the name of Igor Dushenko, who made most of the salacious allegations and criminal allegations and was working with Hillary Clinton's team to do this.
Yeah, that's what informants do. That's
okay,
what informants do.
Let me finish real quick since we're bringing this up. What happened was the IG was shocked that they never actually attempted to contact Dushenko to see if his story was true. When they finally did, after the warrant was, I believe, accepted twice, before the third time the warrant was accepted, they reached out to the subsource who basically told them, oh, that was just all bar talk. Yeah, I don't have any proof for any of this. What the FBI did was went to the FISA court and said, we talked to the primary subsource and we feel that he's telling the truth. What the IG was startled by was he didn't tell the FISA court that what they felt he was telling the truth about was that it was all bullshit. They left that part out. That shows nefarious intent. That is clearly intentionally sandbagging.
I don't think it. I don't think it does.
How does this help you prove that Biden's a?
I mean, if they lie left and right about something multiple times and say no, I mean, it sounds kind of nefarious to me.
Better choice than Trump.
Okay, well, if you want to move off the point, we can.
I'm happy to talk about it all night.
But what I'll do is I'll go ahead and I'll just give a quick close here, and we can move on to immigration if you're fine with that. But again, that doesn't actually show nefarious intent. It shows that there's processing errors. All you're doing is giving me illegal processing errors. You had never actually demonstrated there was anything wrong with the FBI or CIA or any intelligence agency tapping a person's phone just because they happen to be in the Trump administration. If they were in the midst of committing crimes,
what was the crime they were committing?
That's totally okay. They're under the suspicion of committing crimes. They're under the suspicion of it.
And what was the proof of that?
Well, again, it's a suspicion. So you go to court under suspicion. You can't prove crimes when they're under suspicion. You do this with drug dealers all the time, Rob. They're under suspicion, and so you give them surveillance so you can prove the crime.
That's specifically not how FISA warrants work. A FISA warrant, you have to re-up. They're only good for 3 months. At least these ones were only good for 3 months, and you have to continually check your information. Before we spy on an American, let alone a part of a presidential team, we should make sure that the evidence we're using is at least attempted to be
verified. They're not above the law.
Of course not.
And by the way, it was my close, and he interrupted me like a typical conservative because you won't even let me get through the argument, Rob.
Some call that alpha Chad.
Yeah, do you think maybe you can calm the fuck down during my close? Like I've been nice enough to let you do Spurg. Okay, so anyway, back before I was so fucking rudely interrupted by a fucking anarchist over here, let me try to put this in the best way I possibly can. Rob has not demonstrated there was anything actually which was intentionally illegal. Only things which were ruled as being processed. They were illegal by process. Of illegal action by process, that's it. But there's nothing wrong or unjustified if somebody's under suspicion of a crime with surveilling them. One of the ways that you do that is electronic. It's a much ado about nothing. Barr was never able to prove it, ever. He was in front of Congress, couldn't prove it. Said that all of this was going on. Never gave us the evidence that this was going on. And it was a complete nothing burger. Still is a complete nothing burger. And I'll close on this section there.
All right, I'll just take 20 seconds if you don't mind. We already had a proven illegal action that occurred, intent, which was Kevin Klein being arrested. The fact that
You're a bigot. You're a fucking
What do you
bigot,
mean? It's my opinion that he was charged and found guilty of that crime.
Yeah, whatever, dude. Bigot.
Yeah, that's what I thought. OnlyFans Andrew.
Bring me another drink so I can deal with this fucking.
I
You know what? I can't even call you what you are on YouTube.
Are you? What are you drinking? A nice Merlot or something?
Just make your fucking clothes, Rob. Make your fucking clothes.
Interrupting like a good little Chad conservative there. Yeah, and you can see the fact that they were talking about insurance policies. Look, none of this. Again, Andrew has one offensive argument for Biden. This is just making my arguments to show how corrupt these institutions are. They've been for years and years. Trump was considered a potential outsider, and that's the reason to vote for him again on these specific issues. If you want your voice to matter and not unelected bureaucrats, people in our cultural institutions, etc., then you need to ensure that people like the Biden administration don't maintain power. This is a crucial election because we can see that they're amping it up right now. They're going to start censoring people online more and more like me, not people like the lefties on the crucible, which they'll no doubt promote with the Win Progressive Victory PAC.
Okay, fine. I'm happy to move on to illegal immigration. And let's talk about how the wall not only didn't work, that Trump never put in a wall, but instead it ended up being a criminal conspiracy between Roger Stone and another guy who embezzled a ton of money using his military status as a veteran to do so, all signed off by the corrupt Trump administration. And on not effective at all on illegal immigration. His use claimed at the beginning when I said Biden has deported far more illegals than Trump ever thought of. I mean, it's significantly higher. You said, well, that's because he's opening it up so more can come in. Well, I'm sorry, Rob, that doesn't logically follow. There was still a large pool of illegals that Trump still could have deported, even if he wasn't letting more illegals in. That makes no fucking sense. It's an incoherent, logical position. Trump still could have deported just as many as Biden, even if I were to grant that Biden lets more in.
The ones that are being deported aren't people that have been here for years and years. There's a solid argument to be made that maybe Trump should have went outside the bounds of what Republican leadership was suggesting and tried to issue an executive order that would have no doubt been shut down by the courts to start deporting the millions upon millions of illegals that are already here. It's probably something he should have done. Reason for criticism. However, the illegals that are being deported by Biden aren't those people either. They're being deported specifically from a pool of people that are coming across the border and don't meet the very loose criteria that is allowing those people to stay. The difference is Trump was trying to build a wall that Republican leadership and Democratic leadership were sabotaging, including calling it racist, to which they then want to build a wall now. And Trump actually did a good job of trying to advocate for getting that wall spent. The idea that Roger Stone
he advocated for it.
Are you gonna interrupt my opinion? The idea that he's responsible for Roger Stone, I thought it was Steve Bannon that was involved in this sort of scheme with allegedly money.
I'm sorry, you're right. Steve Bannon, not Stone.
That's private people doing things. That's different than government money that Trump, he doesn't control the power of the purse. He was trying to get feckless Republicans.
He endorsed it, Rob.
He was trying to get feckless Republicans that are actually antithetical to the wishes of their own constituents to actually force through some sort of border spending, which they were unwilling to do, just like they were unwilling to do for decades before Trump, because they actually see utility in the open borders as well. So Trump was doing a better job. He was sabotaged by people like Biden. Biden ran on the promise. I'll finish. Biden basically ran on the promise of opening up the border, said that it shouldn't be illegal or a crime to try to come here illegally. And as a result, we've seen historic numbers of people that are coming. The idea that we should find some sort of solace in that he sent a small handful back, his percentage that he sent back that's come over the border significantly lower than the percentage Trump sent. And Trump was actually having policies like remain in Mexico, which meant less people were coming anyways. Proofs in the pudding. You could buy the gaslighting and spin. We can see how many illegals are coming here under Biden. We can see that he's issuing policies trying to effectively give them amnesty. Right now, we can see that Chuck Schumer admitted that that's ultimately the goal, to try to give these people a path to citizenship. It is about replacing and having a compliant population in this country and making the government the god amongst everything else, which would mean that Christianity, family values, etc., will be placed on the back burner for the
Oh, that's funny. How would having a bunch of Hispanic immigrants who are Catholic be an effective?
My bad. We got like 50 minutes left.
Deterrent against Christian values, Rob?
Because the theory is the Democrats are banking on is that they will continue to vote for Democrats which have secular policies because they'll be more concerned about remaining in the United States. And they're afraid that a politician from the other side that would say, no, we have to have a secure border.
Doesn't really make a lot of sense. Let me explain why. Okay, so starting with this, by the second or third generation, these Hispanics are becoming more and more conservative. We see this all over the country. We see inside.
Breaking news, the Supreme Court rules 8-1 upholding ban on domestic abusers owning guns. So
the states which are Hispanic, now becoming Hispanic strongholds, are moving more and more red, not more and more blue. It's only the first generations. And the thing is why? Because they're bringing in those Catholic values. You make this kind of crazy ass claim. Well, this is antithetical to Christendom and Christian ethics. How could it be? If you're immigrating people from Christian nations who are Catholics, how would that be antithetical to Christian values? One. Two, you still haven't demonstrated why it is that Biden, who's massively deporting these people, I mean, en masse deporting them. Right now, you have a refugee crisis because of the drug wars and all sorts of other things which are going on south of the border. Okay, he's removing them as fast as he can, but he has refugees he has to deal with. So I don't know how you expect him to deal with this refugee crisis. What do you want him to do? Do you want him to razor wire the border with machine guns, Rob?
Yeah,
is that what you want him to do against refugees, Rob?
I don't think they should shoot them, but they should put a wall.
Is that Christian, Rob?
Yes, it's absolutely.
It is? Yes. It's Christian. It's Christians who take barbed wire, razor wire, and line your border with razor wire and machine guns for people who are fleeing a war zone.
Yes.
Yes, they should go into port of entry.
It is a Christian.
Yes.
It is a Christian ethic to look out for the people that you're responsible for, your family unit first. The role of the government is basically an extension of that. The government exists solely at the pleasure and the service of the people that are citizens of this country. They do not have a moral obligation to look through the well-being of people outside it. Just like as a father,
antithetical to Christian ethics.
Just like as a father, you should not harm your children because you feel you have a moral imperative to help your neighbor's kids. And so, yes, it is within Christian ethics to want to have a secure border. That's not libertarian.
No,
in fact, many libertarians argue for open borders.
I just asked you. So what if many of them do? It doesn't mean they're arguing correctly, right? It doesn't mean they're actually arguing based on their moral prism. I asked you specifically, here's the specific question. How is it antithetical to? Not why can you do it under Christian ethics? Why shouldn't you do it under Christian ethics? Why is it bad to do under Christian ethics?
Why is it bad to have open borders under Christian ethics?
No, why is it bad? Why is it bad to allow refugees to come in and process refugees from war zones, Rob? Why would that be bad?
Not necessarily would it be a bad thing. The problem is that it's being the problem is the way that it's being entailed. There's a lot of things that hypothetically could be good or bad. For example, it could be good or bad to help your neighbor. If it comes at the expense of helping your own family, then it's bad. If it doesn't and it actually helps your family to help your neighbor, then it would.
Why would that be bad if it came at the expense of you and your family?
Because Christian ethics would be that you look out for yourself and your relationship first. As a father and as a husband, you should be protecting yourself.
No, wait. No. There's all sorts of effects that happen inside of Christian communities which directly affect negatively people for the good of the greater community, Rob. What the hell are you talking about?
That's not a moral position. That is not a Christian position.
Yeah, why is it an unchristian position?
Because the idea of intentionally harming your family as a husband and father whose job it is through Christianity to protect your family, to intentionally harm your family to benefit other families is antithetical to what Christianity.
Yeah, but this is okay. But no, I don't think so. Because let's say, for instance, there was a food crisis in the United States.
You're a Christian, by the way.
But I can speak to Christian ethics. So let's say there was a food crisis. Are you?
Yes, a bad one.
A bad one. Okay, so
I believe Jesus is
anyway. So the point is, though, is that if you're discussing this, right? If you were to have, like, let's say, a food crunch or something like this, why would it be antithetical to cycle food around to Christian ethics, knowing that that could mean less food for you and your family? That doesn't sound like an unethical position from Christianity.
If it causes harm to your family, it would.
That would be harm.
Yeah. No. Let me.
How would that not be harm?
Let me throw you a bone a little. If the harm that was caused would be minimal, right? So it's such a low level of harm that doesn't do any sort of permanent harm, then perhaps you can make an argument for tightening your belt a little to help a neighbor. But what we're talking about is different.
But that's harm, Rob. That's harm, Rob.
What you've done is, right, you're taking a position and saying, isn't it true that sometimes helping your neighbor could be a good thing, which I've conceded that absolutely can be the case. And you say, therefore, we need to take refugees, which is ignoring the specific situation as it's playing out right now, which is the vast bulk of these people aren't refugees, they're economic migrants. They're overwhelming our refugee system. And here's the problem. It is not it is not me that is immoral. It is the people like you that have openly advocated for these sort of open border policies, slapping in the face of the laws.
There's no open border policy.
Please, let me finish. Right?
Tell me the open border policy.
Okay.
Tell it to me.
Okay, I'll tell you. Here's the open border
I'll pull it up right now. Go ahead.
Okay. Anyone who comes here with an asylum claim has to be processed and left within the United States.
That's not an open border policy, Rob. No, it's not. No, it's not.
Yes.
No, they can. They're no. Are they violating the law by not showing up to their hearing?
What does the law have to do with whether or not it's open border?
Well, that's not open borders then.
Of course it is.
No, open borders is you cross the border with complete impunity or you don't.
That's not true.
That's open border. Yeah,
it is true. Open border. It is true. Now, for someone who couldn't define the word spy, I think it's interesting that you want to argue semantics here. I would define open border as a border that can be crossed by anyone.
Yeah.
Okay, that's what we have.
Okay, no, we don't.
Yes.
Our border, the laws say you're not supposed to be able to cross by anyone.
That's what the laws say, but that's not how in effect.
So then we don't have an open border, Rob.
Of course we do. The semantic.
No, you don't. This is not even rhetorically good from your angle. We do not have an open border. We are deporting en masse people who are here illegally. There are asylum seekers, but the United States policy has always been if there's asylum seekers that we process them and do something with them. They're coming in such numbers, asylum seekers. What can we do?
Let me ask you a hypothetical. I know it's difficult for you lefties. Don't worry.
Hopefully, Rob points out that asylum seekers, they're actually supposed to go to the closest country, not the one where they could prosper more. So, for example, if people were seeking asylum from Mexico, that would be they would come to the United States, all right? Or all right, whatever.
I'm not going to ask you about breakfast, so follow with me here for a second. Let's assume that there's a country that literally doesn't have.
I did have breakfast this morning.
Well, I knew. Let's assume there's a country that on purpose announces we don't even have a border. We don't have border guards, right? Okay, follow me. Anyone who walks across the border is allowed, but they do deport people. They say no. We do think there are certain things you can do that we send you back. Is that country open border?
Repeat it. Let me make sure I get it right.
There's no guards, anything like that in the border. Anyone for any reason that wants to walk across can. But there are certain laws within the country that we say, hey, if we don't like what you do, we can send you out of the country. Is that open border?
No.
Why not?
Because you still have to obey the laws inside of the nation, which say you can't be there. And so if they come and collect you and remove you from their nation because you crossed the border illegally, how would that be open?
Because anyone who wants to cross may do so. And they're specifically acknowledging that they're not.
But they don't. They're stopped at the border constantly and turned away, Rob, all over the fucking United States. Well, right. In all the southern states, they have border.
Again, Rob should point out, what about the fight between the government and Texas, where Texas can't even put up a barbed wire to prevent people from entering the country illegally. And also, asylum seekers are supposed to enter through a port of entry. So they shouldn't be entering illegally across the border, which they do constantly, or they do. And when they get caught, they say, oh, I'm seeking asylum.
Patrol everywhere. It's clearly not an open border.
I understand you eat breakfast. I understand.
Been working triple overtime shifts, getting these people, nailing them at the border, turning them back, or carting them back across. We see this day after day after day. It's not that we don't have border guards. That's insane. They're all over the fucking border, Rob.
And so what you can see is like the classic lefty. He can't engage in a hypothetical situation. He ate breakfast, and so as soon as he's pinned to the fact that how absurd,
it still wouldn't be an open border under the hypothetical.
Border. He says, but there are people at the border doing this.
Okay,
right, gotcha.
So let me ask you this. Let me ask you this in exchange, okay? If you're asking me this hypothetical, let's just say I grant it.
Okay.
You know what? If the border is wide open with zero guards whatsoever, nobody patrolling it ever, right? The entire border is this way. Let's just say I called that an open border.
Okay.
That's not our border, right?
What do you mean our border?
The United States border with Mexico? That is not our border with Mexico, is it?
Great, you're starting
to
understand.
Even if I were to grant it, then who gives a shit?
The argument is, I'm trying to use a hypothetical to point out this absurdity of your semantic argument, right? And so your
hypothetical was absurd.
Your argument seemed to be what you were talking specifically. Why I use this hypothetical was the fact that people are deported proves that we can't be open borders. So I gave a hypothetical situation that forced you to admit, okay, I can see.
No, it still wouldn't be open border. I literally said it still would not be an open border.
Uninterested in the semantic argument. We have a.
I'm sure you are. Because I answered directly to your hypothetical. Hang on, I just want to let you know what happened.
Okay,
I answered not only directly to your hypothetical, said no, it wouldn't be. Yeah, I did. I said no, it still wouldn't be. No, my exact word. No.
You have no reason that it wouldn't be.
It still wouldn't be an open border because you would have to be in obeyance with the laws and be deported. So the answer would be no. But even if we were to grant this, even if we were to grant that it would be an open border, we clearly still don't have one, Rob. So how is that even a fucking argument?
You don't have an argument in a hypothetical why that wouldn't be an open border. The point that the hypothetical was seeking.
I gave you my argument.
What's the argument again?
The argument is you would still be in obeyance with the laws, and the law's intent was that the border was not open or there wouldn't be laws.
That's untrue, right? You can have You can have any sort of community that is, quote, open. You can have a house that's open, a town that's open, any sort of community, and there could be laws within that say, but we'll kick you out if you do things that we don't like. Kicking someone out is not indicative as to whether or not
that's just smuggle. You smuggle. Okay, this is the worst smuggle. This is the worst smuggle I've ever seen. So he says, if you come in and you do certain things, we'll kick you out. Okay, here's the certain thing they kick you out for: crossing the fucking border. That's the thing you get kicked out for. Yes, it is true. If you illegally cross the border, you're supposed to be removed and taken back to your country of.
You're supposed to, but that's not what happens. That's what Rob should point out. It's like you are supposed to. Okay. Sorry. Sorry, I got distracted here. Fuck, what was my goddamn point? I got distracted and forgot my point.
Origin. It's called deportation. Biden does.
Yeah. So no, there's plenty of people who enter the border illegally and then stayed here while they get their due process, and then their response is, "Hey, we'll send them. We'll get them in here, and then you have to from here. We have to give you a court date, and eventually we'll decide what your immigration status. There's no way to actually define, to track these people. They're just let out, and hopefully they come back. And a lot don't. Let's see.
Tons and tons of it. The guards are picking them up at the border every single day by tens of thousands. And this.
Oh, and again, Rob should be pointing out the border, the Texas versus the Biden government, I guess, border thing where Texas or where the government was saying, hey, you can't put up razor wire on this stretch of land where a lot of people enter illegally, and we're going to cut it down. They cut it down, then Texas put it up, so on and so forth.
This is what's actually happening. What you did in your hypothetical was you smuggled this in. You said, oh, so it's an open border because the laws say you can cross the border, but when you get here, if you violate X, Y, Z law, then we'll deport you. Okay, you already violated the XYZ law, which is you're not allowed to cross the border. That's why it's not open, Rob.
That's not true. The people aren't being kicked out purely because they cross the border. If that's the case, then why isn't everyone that illegally crosses the border sent back?
Because there's so many of them, you can't round them all up in a fucking day or a week or a month or a year.
So your argument is that the Biden administration is diligently attempting to round up the hundreds of thousands of people that come a month that are coming illegally, right? They're trying to
They're exporting far more of them than Trump ever did.
That's not true. What's happening?
It is true.
Let's see if I can use these terms correctly. I might screw this up. I shouldn't even use the terms, but we have de jure and de facto. We have de facto open borders, even though the laws say that there are certain laws that need to be applied. The fact is because the United States government is funding NGOs that are telling millions of illegal immigrants the things they need to say to get access to cross the border.
Well, that's really weird. The government's funding what?
NGOs.
You mean non-government organizations?
Correct.
Okay, and which non-government organizations are they funding?
There's a litany of them.
Which one? Name one.
Andrew's mom for open Hispanics.
Oh, good one, Rob.
Yeah,
name one of these NGOs that's actually putting in policies to say, oh, we're going to fund you coming in. We're going to do whatever you want. Just give me one. Don't Google it, fucker. Give me one.
I'm not Googling it. I'll be straight up. I have a list of the NGOs that I've written about before on my home computer. I don't have it in front of me, but I'm not going to bullshit you and claim that I have the names specifically on top. It's irrelevant as to whether or not they exist. Is it your argument that you're trying to make because I can't name a specific name that there are no NGOs?
It seems very central. It seems very central to your argument that there's NGO think tanks which are somehow subverting fucking border policy. But you can't name a single one.
Right.
That's pretty convenient, Rob. That's pretty convenient.
So your argument
is that part of the shadow government, Mr. Tinfoil Hat? Is that part of the swamp?
In effect, it is part of the swamp. This is something that occurs all the time. The United States State Department intelligence agencies fund NGOs to do policies that our government's legally not allowed to do. This is how color revolutions occur around the world. This is how the policies that you're talking about that are leading to immigrants coming here occur so often. There are NGOs that go down that are financed by the United States government.
That you can't name.
People, that's true. I don't have their specific name from me. That tell these people specifically what they need to say to make an amnesty claim. Once that amnesty claim is made, then it's in effect an open border, and they're allowed to come in. That's why we see the hundreds of thousands of people here, and that's why you hear Chuck Schumer and Joe Biden.
And what is your proof that the government, that the federal government is funding these non-government organizations? What's your evidence of this?
The budgets that show it.
What budgets that show that they're funding which NGOs which are doing this?
I don't have the specifics in front of me.
Yeah, of course you
don't. Specifics are.
Of course you don't. Came to a debate completely unprepared to talk about a pivotal point of immigration. Good job, Rob.
It's not a pivotal point. It is a point that
immigration is not a pivotal point. No, that was literally one of the biggest points of the Trump administration was that they were going to stop illegal immigration.
No, immigration is certainly a big issue. This specific point about these NGOs and needing to know their specific names is not a pivotal point. No. Again, let's just ask you.
The funders do what?
Do you acknowledge that illegal immigration is a problem? It seems to be that's the stance you're taking.
Sure.
Okay.
Sure.
Is it worse under Biden or Trump?
It was worse under Trump.
That's a lie. The numbers prove that you're wrong.
It's not a lie. Not only that, not only was it worse under Trump, he did less to remove them.
What metric?
He also promised us a wall, which he did not deliver on.
What metric? Okay, you just said illegal immigration is a problem. You say it's worse under Trump. What metric are you using?
I'm using the metric of deportation.
Okay, so what's a problem about illegal immigration? Why do you call it a problem?
Well, because I think that it doesn't comply with the spirit of the law of being, waiting your turn in line to become a citizen of the United States.
Okay, so that's a bullshit answer. The real problem.
How's that a bullshit answer?
Because it's just
is that not a problem?
It's a problem, but it's certainly nowhere near the top of why it's a problem.
I would say that most people you asked, if you said, why is illegal immigration a problem? They would say, because illegal immigrants who have waited for years in line to become a member of the United States, they get jumped over by illegals coming in, taking their spot. I would say that that's the number one moral argument you can make, Rob.
The moral argument.
No, I would say the argument would be that these people are coming in illegally, they're entering the country illegally, they're tampering on their resources, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And then obviously you get to also legal immigrants who are here or are waiting in line end up losing their spots, stuff like that.
Right, would be irrelevant to why it's a significant problem in this country. It's a significant.
I don't think so.
I disagree. I think that the big problem is the overwhelming nature of the mass amount of illegal immigration we have. But even if we accept your argument, okay, so then the people skipping line, are there more people skipping line under Biden or Trump?
It is true that there has been a greater influx of illegals moving in to take advantage of the United States. However, let me give you a quick counter here to this. We don't actually know how widespread the illegal immigration was during the lockdowns because tons and tons were coming in to take advantage of the Trump administration, literally giving these packages, these incentive packages, monetary packages to people who came in and claimed they were citizens. Very little checks done on this, by the way. Almost everybody who applied for COVID relief got it, including tons and tons and tons of illegals. He offered essentially an incentive. And we have no idea because of the lockdowns. Governments were locked down, Border Patrol's locked, almost everybody is, okay? You only had core infrastructure that was out there. They were literally laying people off in the Border Patrol agencies because they were afraid of getting infected. We don't actually know what the numbers were. It could be that under the Trump administration during the lockdowns, more came over here to take advantage of that than you think. We don't know for sure. We see this influx now, that's true, but there's a variety of reasons why that's going on, and Biden's certainly shipping them the fuck out as fast as he can to a way higher tune than Trump ever was.
Okay, first off, you have no evidence whatsoever that we can't trust to a large degree the immigration numbers during COVID, but we can trust them at other times. That's absurd.
I can logically demonstrate it.
You have no evidence of it whatsoever.
I can logically demonstrate it.
You could claim to have logically demonstrated it, but
if you and I agree with the logical demonstration, then I've demonstrated it.
Okay, part of your logical demonstration would be that there were less Border Patrol people working because of COVID restrictions, correct?
Overall, far less government working, period.
Does that have anything to do?
I'm going to explain it to you. This means less drones. This means less ways for you to catalog these things. This means it would logically follow that if you have less manpower due to COVID, that you would be able to catalog these things correctly less.
You're making an assertion, which is during the lockdown.
Does that not logically follow?
No, because the problem is, I'm explaining, because it's based on an assertion you're making that there were less government employees in these sectors, particularly border secure ICE agencies.
There was, for sure there was. I can give you the number. Yeah, that I can do. On the retraction, I'll pull it up for you. 1 second here.
Also, I'd like you to find the numbers. What was the percentage of the people that came across?
Hang on, one thing at a time, Mr. King Gish Gallagher. You think you can do one thing at a time?
While you're on your Google machine there.
You asked me to Google it.
You're the one who made this pivotal point. I assumed you would have it in front of you. You asked me not to Google an NGO's name.
It was your point I was responding to. You said, go ahead, Google it and show it.
No, you.
We've got about 2 minutes left. Let's try to wrap this up, please.
Okay, well, just very quickly. This was part of the U.S. Border Patrol Customs COVID-19 relief on horse exports. They talk about retracting up to 1/3 of the total of Border Patrol agents in administration. Now, I guess, Rob, I can grant for the sake of argument just for the sake of argument, even that somehow they were able to keep the finest record keeping, even while retracting 1/3 of the totality of their workforce. But don't you think that that's a fucking stretch, dude?
No.
No.
You were probably the same guy saying when Elon Musk fired like 80% of Twitter that it was going to collapse too, and then it ran swimmingly.
Oh, okay, Rob. But did you want less or more Border Patrol agents?
Did yours?
Do you want less or more Border Patrol agents?
It is. I would want more. However,
You would want more. Why?
Well, let me finish. Right?
Yeah, you finish.
Right.
Go ahead.
I would want more. However, if I had to choose between more funding to them and more agents that were continually hamstrung, like the Biden administration is doing to them, or less that were allowed to actually do their job, I would choose less. Right? And didn't the stat you read said Border Patrol
Under the Trump administration, you think that less of them are doing their job?
I think that they were allowed to do their job better and keep people on the Mexican side.
And if they had more staffing, they would do the job even more better than that.
So
Right, Rob?
the people that are experts, such as the Border Patrol Union, talks continuously.
Not if they weren't allowed to actually do anything. Like if you hired more people, but they're not actually allowed to do anything, that wouldn't be really showing anything.
About how Biden is intentionally sabotaging them and tying their hands, even to the point where Biden's administration, remember when he promoted the hoax of the Border Patrol agent on the horse that was lassoing
This
the
is just a
noble
diatribe. It's not answering to my query.
I gave
This is not
specific
answering to my query.
relevant
Listen, here's
testimony
the query.
from the
Here's the
actual
query.
workers that said
Yeah.
that they're being hamstrung by Biden in ways that Trump.
This is the most bad face shit ever. Answer to the query. If you would want more Border Patrol rather than less Border Patrol underneath Trump, it's because you think that having more Border Patrol agents out there makes it far more effective in cataloging, finding them, deporting them, knowing where they are, knowing where they aren't. That's why you would want more. That's why we all know that that's exactly why you would want more. And yet, in this, when I say, okay, they retracted it, but they have perfect cataloging still, you're like, yes. What the fuck are you talking about?
I didn't say that perfect. By the way,
Well, then, Rob,
I didn't say that
there's a good
perfect.
example here that there could be far more illegals who came in under Trump than is ever reported due to the fact that we have these lockdowns. And I did just logically demonstrate that
It's
to you,
not true
right?
at all. Did not what you read say that there were less Border Patrol administrators by a third?
Yes,
Did
that's
it say
true.
Border
But
Patrol agents?
it wasn't clear what the admixture was. But for sure, there was less Border Patrol agents. But Rob, Border Patrol agents are going to act in an administrative fashion as well. When you say I want more border security, that's going to include administrators. Yes,
So
it is. Yes, it is, Rob. How do you
Administrators
process
are
without
being-
administration?
Right, the administrators are being kind of. There's no evidence. I'll look for you to provide evidence that suggests that the actual people that were there when people were crossing the border, or in the case of Remain in Mexico, that came as a result of the lockdowns, where we were keeping more people on that side of the border, that somehow that they weren't adequately doing their job, even though there doesn't seem to be any evidence you suggested that there were less of those people. Again, this is all just stretching and gaslighting. It's easy for anyone.
They had an incentive to come here, Rob. Are you saying they had no incentive to come here when you were handing out these COVID relief packages to the tunes of tens of thousands of dollars to people to stay at home and sit on their asses? And those were going to illegals. We know that they were going to illegals. We know tons of those packages went to illegals. How the fuck could you say there was no incentive for them to come and that you had the same administrative power to track them? How could you ever say that? Well, then I'm logically demonstrating to you that, of course, the chances that if there's an incentive, they came in and we couldn't track it, Rob.
What you're doing is, right, you're talking about things that are fundamentally true. Yes, there is an incentive. That incentive is non-unique. The incentive to come to the United States from these sort of people has existed always. It may fluctuate up and down, but that incentive is always
existed. That's a little bit more incentive.
The idea that you say, because there was money being handed out in this unique situation, maybe even though we have no evidence of it, that millions flooded that we're just unaware of, which is bullshit. And then furthermore, right, to further prove this, what would be a bigger incentive? Donald Trump, who was telling these illegals, you have to remain in Mexico, we're not going to accept you, and his Border Patrol agents and Border Patrol Union said that he was attempting that and giving them free reign to do that, or the Biden administration, which ran on the promise of allowing all of these people in, to the tune that the Border Patrol agents say that we're being intentionally hamstrung, and when they interview illegal immigrants, continuously say, the reason we're here is because Biden and the Democrats told us we could come.
They said under Trump they were still intentionally hamstrung, Rob.
I love this about Democrats. I love this, right? The numbers are always to be trusted. Trust the science, trust the government, until the numbers go in a direction you don't
That's a straw man.
It's not true. The objective
It's a straw
reality.
man. I gave you the objective logical argument you have not refuted.
You've given no evidence for it. You've talked about a potential hypothetical that you haven't. You've talked about a potential hypothetical that you're trying to build a logic tree about, that there are so many holes in it's laughable. And you're saying because it is potential.
Sure, yeah.
Right, for example, if there was an incentive, people could have came, right? Theoretically, that could happen. If some administrators went down, could that mean that they didn't have an accurate count of the numbers? Yes, but I don't understand if there were just as many border. But it could mean that. So therefore, we should ignore all the numbers that show that we have an immigration crisis unlike this country has ever seen.
Oh, I'm sorry, Rob. You got caught in a logical demonstration, which you completely and totally fucking agreed with, and now you're backtracking, going, there's tons of holes in it, even though I could never point one out.
I just did.
Point one out.
Okay. You have no evidence whatsoever that says less administrators would mean that there wouldn't be it would be a wildly inaccurate count.
Okay, Rob, does it stand to reason that the reason that you want more Border Patrol agents at the border, which would include administrators, is because you think that they could more easily track, find, and deport illegal immigrants, Rob?
I would say that if given the proper circumstances.
Yes or no, Rob?
I would say yes. If they're allowed to.
Then I logically demonstrated it to you.
That's not true.
It is true.
You have not. I don't think. In fact, I'll go so far as to say this. I'll bet. Would you acknowledge that it seems that with our federal government that there's been a massive exponential increase in administrators compared to on-the-ground jobs? Yes or no? Yes or no? Yes or no? Okay, so name a department that you don't think that there's been an exponential increase in administrators. Go ahead.
The Border Patrol.
That's not true.
No,
that's certainly not.
Biden's doing what you want and increasing the amount of Border Patrol to deport people. Great, Rob. Another logical demonstration for Andrew was right. Another logical demonstration for Andrew was right.
You're truly living in an alternate reality. I'll finish this point real quick, Sparky. No, what I'm saying is, it is absolutely true that the percentage of on-the-ground workers to administrators in the Border Patrol, just like almost every other institution of government in this country, has massively increased. That there are way more administrators now than there were percentage-wise 30 years ago. And so, yes, I think that we probably could cut back on some of the administrators. However, we probably should have more actual on-the-ground ICE agents. The bigger problem is allowing these ICE agents to Border Patrol. allowing ICE agents and Border Patrol to actually do their job. That's the bigger problem. We can have
doesn't track.
That is
how are you
bullshit.
going to process if you have more Border Patrol agents who are collecting more of these illegal immigrants? They have to be processed, Rob. If you're going to process them, you're going to need more administrators, and you're going to need more sergeants, and you're going to need more desk jockeys in order to route them, and you're going to need more people flying fucking drones to spot them, and then you're going to need more paperwork tracking. It is fucking true.
That's not true.
I'm pretty sure we don't use drones to to patrol our border. I'm pretty sure that's not what happens.
Hold on. You can respond in your closing statements. We've already gone 3 minutes over.
All right.
Make sure Andrew got the last word there. Rob, you will start off with closing statements. You'll have 7 minutes, and we will allow Andrew, since he is the challenger, to finish the debate with his closing statement.
Okay, so I will say that Andrew does a convincing facsimile of a Democrat here, because what it constantly is ignore the objective reality. The guy probably couldn't define to you what a woman is. He'll be telling you that, all of a sudden that things like, age consent, all that, we don't know about any of that, and anyone could marry anyone, etc., etc. Thank God we didn't get into an incest conversation, which I know he is like to do. So what he wants you to do is ignore the objective reality that we see in all of these things. I will say, I give him credit for trying to gaslight an audience, but step back and ask yourself this. This dude had total control to talk about the topics he wanted that was going to prove that Biden was better than Trump. He has not outlined one offensive position, right? Everything that he talked about was, well, it's not as bad as some may think, right? Like the FBI spying on Trump and all that stuff. What was the point of that? Those people that are running the Biden administration that are part and parcel of him because he's just a dementia honorable man. He's like, well, it wasn't quite as bad as you would think. They didn't spy directly on Trump. How does that give me incentive to vote for Biden over Trump? Or when we started talking about the border, all he could say is, well, maybe for all we know, the numbers, we shouldn't trust them because they were way worse under Trump. We just didn't know about it. We just didn't know. It's laughable. Everyone can see this sort of, trick that he's trying to employ to gaslight you, but the numbers are there. It's evident what's going on. And it makes sense also anecdotally when you see that Biden provided the incentive where he told them to all come here, which is exactly what happened. That's what the Democrats remember. No Democrat in that debate stage in 2020 raised their hand when they said, should it be a crime to cross the border illegally? They also know. They talked about all the benefits that they were going to give illegal schooling, healthcare benefits, etc., and about the moral imperative to do so. And it makes sense when we talk to the Border Patrol, they say how bad Biden's been. And it makes sense when we talk to the illegals, they talk about, we're here because Biden and the Democrats said we could be here. So we see on that realm of things how bad things were. We didn't talk about the economy much there, but I understand why, because it's another indefensible position, which would have just resulted in Andrew doing the same thing the Democrats always do, to tell you to not look at the actual numbers, forget about the fact that you're actually paying 50 to 80% more for a bunch of staples that you need, but trust us, because the strategic reserve's been lowered a little, things are going okay. Foreign policy-wise, like, what's the argument? What argument did he make that Biden's doing a good job? He spent all this time him and Han about the petrodollar and things like that. It's indisputable. Take a step back and ask yourself these questions. Is the country better off now than it was in like 2019? It's not even close. Foreign policy things are a disaster. We have war that's coming on so many fronts. With Trump, we had no new wars. Wasn't perfect, but we had no new wars that were declared. We had historic Middle East peace deals. With Biden, we have conflict in the Middle East that we haven't seen for decades. We have Russia invading Ukraine. We have Russian warships off the coast of the United States. We have BRICS nations that are coming together. We have Saudi Arabia getting off the petrodollar. We have China aggressing. All of these things are occurring. None of this happened under Trump. But we're told, forget all that. Joe Biden, the true statesman, he's doing a great job. He's doing great. What position did Andrew argue on foreign policy that makes you trust Biden and ignore all this evidence that we see as opposed to Donald Trump? Then when it came to sort of Trump's fecklessness, okay, sure, Trump didn't drain the swamp as well as he did. He has no good answer for Biden is literally a representative of the swamp. If we're conceding that the swamp is bad, would I take a guy that might fail in trying to fight them or a guy that is actively promoting them? Clearly, I'm going to take the guy that might fail. And Andrew basically says, when you really pry into it, it's a good thing. It's a good thing that the generals didn't listen to him. It's a good thing that these unelected bureaucrats made these decisions. And make no mistake about it, these unelected bureaucrats don't give a shit about you. They care about maintaining their own power. And that's also why they want things like open borders. In the beginning, he talked about the morality of Joe Biden versus Donald Trump. Again, he had nothing to say about the actual policies. If we're accepting that we want sort of Christian ethics to be promoted in this country, he has nothing to say other than Trump slept with a porn star and ignore all the things that Biden did because I don't really believe him. And yet, he ignores the fact the active promotion from the Biden administration from all of these secular policies, including abortions on demand, including locking up people that are protesting abortions, including the sexuality of children, including DEI initiatives. We didn't even talk about things like the FBI intentionally burying the manifesto of a trans shooter. These sorts of things are occurring routinely and are accelerating. There is cultural momentum pushing back on this stuff. But if we allow Biden to entrench himself, and more importantly, he's a vegetable, but the administration behind him, they will make your voice less and less important and entrench themselves. They'll do things like pack the Supreme Court, advocate for more censorship. That means that people like me and the old Andrew Wilson will be unable to have channels where we can actually talk about how corrupt these things are, how dangerous they are. So the best chance we have going forward is clearly a Donald Trump presidency. I'm non-impressed with Andrew and his defense. I know it's a difficult task to try to defend Joe Biden, but I don't even think strategically he comes in with a good game plan. He just starts to muddy the waters and say, Trump's bad, there's a lot of stuff, but he's not giving you a comparison why Biden would be preferable to Trump. I've given that in the opening statements, and if I was allowed to choose the topics, I would have chose strategically. First thing I would have talked about was immigration. Second thing I would have talked about was the economy. Third thing I would have talked about was foreign policy. Instead, Andrew comes in, doesn't really have a plan about this, and just says, I'm going to talk about logic, logic trees and all of this stuff. None of it made sense. He does a great job of articulating what an average Democrat is, but it is clear that he is unable to define the specifics of the reality on the ground. I know what a man is. I know what a woman is. I'm sorry that Andrew no longer does, but I believe in objective reality. I believe in sort of these Christian ethics. I believe that the American people deserve to have a government that represents them and their values. And Andrew believes in a fake reality where Joe Biden's a really sharp guy that doesn't sniff little girls, and it's a great thing.
All righty. Thank you for that. and Andrew Wilson.
Thank you for that
is,
overly long-winded closing statement where you said literally nothing. Just tried to, as you accused me of, typical Republican fashion. Obfuscation brought up topics we didn't even get to, as though I ever got a chance to even respond to them. Good job there. That's some great logic, Rob. So let's go through this real quick. All the things that Rob criticizes me on the foreign policy and petrodollar was not my opening statement. That was Rob. It was in Rob's opening statement. So of course we went over to it. Gave you no policies at all that Biden had, which led to Saudi Arabia striking off petrodollar. None. Not one. Not a single one. Moving on from there, when we move off of the petrodollar, we move into Russian warships, right? He brings this up in his opening statement. Guess who didn't? This guy. I didn't. Rob did. He led the conversation. I let him, and it was so easy to do this. So we get into, these warships that are off you can see them from Florida. Oh, no. Well, Rob, do you think World War III is going to happen? No. Rob, do you think that this is really going to be a crisis? No. Hey, Rob, should people start buying bunkers and hoarding food because of this? No, right? It's literally grandstanding. It's meaningless. It means nothing. We get into the FISA warrants. We get into Carter Page. We get into this. All he could do is say, well, they surveilled somebody who they suspected was a criminal, really provided no evidence. The Barr never was able to provide any of the evidence. Neither was the Trump administration. Totally moot. But remember, we started this off under the ethical understanding that Trump is just as unethical as Biden. Right? From a moral standpoint, he's just as bad. He's out humping hookers. He's paying hush money, right? And all Rob could say is, oh, well, a chick who never actually came forward with an allegation wrote it in her diary once. Oh, great job. Great job. You really got me there, Rob. Then moving on from there, when we get into immigration, that was fucking hilarious. Rob wants to have additional border security, even though he feels that the administration of having more border security is actually going to be ineffective and bog the system down. That makes a lot of fucking sense, doesn't it? And then when pressed on it, when I say, wait a second, don't you want to increase these things so that you can catch more of these guys? Yes. Well, you can't have it both ways. So he enters into a complete and total logical conundrum. He doesn't know how to sidestep it at that point. He has no idea how to backtrack it. Completely failed to make an immigration argument. It was a total fail across the board. When you get into the immigration, let me give you again, real quick, where we ended up with here. My position was under the lockdowns, the likelihood that if you're offering incentive packages to illegal immigrants, by paying them to stay at home, which Rob concedes, yes, many of them did get that. He conceded that was true. This offers an incentive coming in, and you retract the border patrol, then that means that you're going to have a lot more illegals come in than probably are accounted for. Rob says, no, that's not true, even though he knows that that's true. And then it goes on to say, when I ask him, wouldn't you prefer to have more border patrol? He says, yes, because then they could do more of these things to get them out of our nation, including tracking them, right? Which if you were to reduce it by 1/3 during lockdowns, how the fuck could you track them? Makes no sense at all, right? Total and complete. I mean, I don't know what happened with Rob and logic. I'm going to send him a book called How the Fuck to Logic. And, I'm going to overnight it to him because, man, what an abysmal failure across the board. Again, very typical of these kind of Republican degenerates, right? And then listen to what he says too. Well, I'm Christian adjacent. The fuck does that mean? I'm Christian adjacent. Well, then Biden's more Christian than Rob is, because at least he claims he's a Catholic. He doesn't claim Christian adjacent, right? Whatever the fuck that means. Now Rob's going to say, you're strawmanning me. I said Christ was my Lord and Savior. Kind of on the fence about it. Yes, this is Lord and Savior, but maybe there's some other things going on in here when it comes to Christian ethics. If maybe you have to tighten your belt so you don't get as much food, that's okay. But putting razor wire machine guns on the border, that's exactly what a Christian would do. This shit makes no sense, right? None of Rob's arguments made any sense, but I'm going to close with this. This debate showed me something extremely important, which is that there's plenty of places where I can shore up my argumentation. And there's also plenty of places that Rob Knorr, who I'm ashamed to call my friend because of his deceitful and disgusting Republican ways, can also shore up. And as they say, gentlemen, iron sharpens iron. Appreciate that very much. And then with that, we can get into the...
All right, there we go. That's the end of it. Thank God. I was kind of getting bored at the end of that, but wanted to finish it. Yeah, no, I definitely agree with Andrew. He poked a lot of holes in Rob Norris' argument. And yeah, I didn't think Rob did as well as he did. He could have. There's a lot of things he should have brought up, especially when it came to Trump's convictions versus the so-called Biden's Joe Biden's allegations from Ashley Biden and all that stuff. He could have done a lot better with the border stuff, So, but it's good. It's good to always shore up your beliefs and your arguments and all that stuff. Yeah, I don't think Rob did such a good performance. He did, have some good points here and there, but he missed some kind of good points that he could have made in retort. So it is what it is, and you can't really fault the guy. Andrew's a master debater. Any debate he's on is, he's going to be fairly a lot better when it comes to arguing him. So I do look forward to checking out the Tenet Media debate that's currently going on. I'll I'll do that stream Monday. Yeah, I'm not gonna lie. Sorry, that's our next shit. Towards the end of it, I was getting kind of bored, so that's why I stopped responding. Because Rob didn't make a lot of points, and he didn't have a lot of his facts set up and all that stuff, which is fine. It is what it is. So, but yeah. Anyways, and I also didn't know a lot about what they're talking about, so I can't really make a commentary on things I don't know about. Oh shit, that's gonna happen too. It looks like on Fresh and Fit they're gonna do what's it call it? They're gonna be going over JFK stuff. I'll probably do a stream of that too, but I'll definitely do this Tenet Media thing first on Monday. So maybe Tuesday will be reserved for the JFK stuff. That might have to be broken up. Who knows? Anyways, let's so there we go. That's the end of the debate. Let's get into the Rekieta law background. YouTube lawyer facing 26 years in prison. Again, captions are on 1.5 speed. This is only a 40-minute video, so this 1.5 speed should make it go quickly, so we should have plenty of time to do it, depending on how much I like to talk. So here we go.
Apparently, hard drugs.
God damn it.
I'm just a white bread. What could a man with money, a wife, and 5 kids possibly want more in life? Apparently, hard drugs.
Description act of. Why would you write a statement that's so hard to read?
And fighting with internet strangers.
I don't trust any of you, and I hope all of you catch gonorrhea from that white face paint you put on. You disgust me.
This is how Nick Rekieta went from internet lawyer to criminal lawyer.
I'm done. I'm done with life.
Long before Nick ever had aspirations to become a lawyer, he went.
So again, I just want to point out, look at fucking Kayla Rekieta. Look how she looks. She looks a lot better. This was back then, back in the day. She was Wednesday, by the way. But if you looked at her mugshot, she looks anorexic. She looks like she's on something, or has been on something, because she is fucking rail thin. It's ridiculous.
Went to Southwest Minnesota State University to get a degree in literature and creative writing. It was during this period, in his early 20s, that he met Kayla, his future wife, who was attending the same university. Though they remained remarkably private about their kids and kept pictures of them squarely out of the internet, probably wise given the state of things, we do know that Kayla became a stay-at-home mom in 2007, soon after they had their first child. The pregnancy and having to pay the bills are probably what made Nick take up work in customer service for Wells Fargo around the same time. Fortunately for him, he only had to stay there for a little over a year, as he managed to get a much more prestigious job as a brokerage representative at Thrivent Financial for Lutherans, an organization that provided services like life insurance and retirement planning, and at the time employed only Lutheran Christians, indicating that this was Nick's religion. For 3 years, Nick had a life many people would kill to have. He was in his mid-20s, he had a wife, a kid, and presumably another kid on the way, and a good-paying job in a charitable Christian organization. But even then, he had the ambition to do more. And in early 2010, he stopped working for Thrivent, and based solely on what's on his LinkedIn page, spent the rest of the year without a job and enrolled in a law school the year after, followed by another 4 years without formal employment. I can't say for sure how he afforded to do this. There could have been unemployment payments involved, at least early on, but it's hard to believe that they lasted for a total of half a decade in a household with 5 or 6 people, not only having to pay bills, but also pay for law school. On the surface, it's a mystery how Nick stayed on.
I've always questioned that. It's like, how did you manage to go to law school and not have a job and survive? And it's this whole trust fund thing that's been floated around actually makes a lot more sense. I don't really think about it, but I always remember hearing that. I was like, how did you manage to do that and still take care of your kids and stuff? Because it was
employed for that long, but it's been speculated that him being able to do this is directly involved with the passing of his grandfather, a veteran from the Korean War who happened to pass away just half a year prior to his enrollment. While there are no documents proving the inheritance, we do know that he had some degree of proximity with his grandfather, since Nick grew up in his grandfather's hometown of Houston. And here's how we know this fun fact.
I'm just a dumb who's never heard of the streets. I don't know about the streets, right? I don't know where you grew up, but where I grew up was the #1 crime neighborhood in Houston, Texas in the 80s. People got shot every day.
Later on, there's another grandfather inheritance theory that's much more substantiated, but we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. By 2015, he got his diploma and opened a business, Rekieta Law, leasing out an office and everything. At this point, despite having long left Thrivent, it seemed Nick was still very much a conservative, religious person, as remnants of his now deleted activity on Twitter show him arguing with people about atheism, which at the time was very much in vogue as far as internet controversial topics went, further bolstering his conservative person.
To be fair, he didn't delete those. The account he had during that time was suspended, I believe.
Where the posts he made online, occasionally tackling contentious subjects like the Black Lives Matter riots, but nothing too risque or radical. However, by late 2017, those same dead footprints of Twitter activity show that Nick was beginning to engage with the seedy underbelly of alternative internet personalities. Namely, he participated in discussions regarding the brewing conflict between Dick Masterson from The Dick Show and his former associate, Maddox. This conflict erupted into a lawsuit, dubbed the LOL suit by many, due to how incompetently the suit was put together. I'm no law buff, but from what I can glean, Maddox was asking for $20 million while citing Kiwi Farms posts as evidence of the damages Dick supposedly caused him. Regardless of the suit's merits or lack thereof, Nick, who was already interested in this niche culture, saw this drama becoming litigious as an opportunity for him to further become a part of this community, and so he did. And
Oh my fucking god.
Fewer abandoned carts. When you offer
November 2017, he began posting a series of videos in which he carefully reviewed the files and gave his legal opinion on them.
You all by now have probably read this, but I'm going to go through and give you my learned
It's kind of funny. You can tell that Nick's using the camera microphone.
legal opinion, which is pretentious and everything. So I'm going to do that with this bottle of Balmore Scotch, which is fantastic. And we're going to see how this goes.
Look how you used to look. So plump and you know, he doesn't look so fucking anorexic and real thin.
So just bear with me.
It's very fitting that the first video, which indirectly led to his current situation, has Nick opening a bottle of scotch in the first 30 seconds. Many more episodes of Nick's review of the LOL suit ensued, and by January 2018, he had achieved his objective of becoming recognized in this little corner of the internet, as Dick invited him to take part in one of the episodes of The Dick Show. Possibly due to the advice he had been receiving from people who were following his uploads, he began live streaming his lawsuit reviews on YouTube since they were all unedited anyway. While Nick gained reputation with Dick and his cohorts, he made himself an enemy of Maddox, who eventually went on something of a campaign to label Nick as the blackface lawyer. While I refrain from commenting on the implications this may have, Nick, along with his non-Yakubian counterpart, Drexel, directly addressed the origins of this picture.
Context is Halloween. It's at my house. We have a group of very close friends,
Yep.
maybe five, six people.
2005. I came to visit, and all of our friends get together. And then at that point, you're like, look, and then here it is, Nick in blackface, and it's hilarious because he's going as me.
I had borrowed your headband.
You borrowed the headband, and you're rocking the afro that I was rocking at that time.
Yeah.
And
Someone actually said that's not the same guy. He's bald.
Despite whatever one's opinion may be on blackface, it's clear from the context that it wasn't done in a mean-spirited fashion, and if anything, emboldened Nick's
It's
reputation
fucking
with the
hilarious. That's what it is.
crowd he'd been mingling with, who saw it as proof that despite being a lawyer, he had a sense of humor. Fortunately for him, despite his strong association with this crowd, he wasn't at all limited to making content that catered to them. As a matter of fact, he made content on pretty much any litigation-related topic he could get his hands on, and every once in a while, it drew in a new crowd of people. Part of why his streams were appealing to people, in spite of how boring the average person would find listening to someone translate legalese for hours on end, his analysis was so charming and easy for a layman to understand that people actually wanted to give him money through super chats to support his streams. The first significant bout of traction Nick was involved in was the case of sexual harassment accusations surrounding Vic Mignogna. In early 2019, Vic, a voice actor who often appeared in anime dubs, had a series of accusations levied against him, which caused him to lose job opportunities and convention appearances. In response, he filed a defamation suit against his employer, Funimation, as well as other voice actors. And Nick organized a GoFundMe page for Vic's case. Well, not exactly. The actual beneficiary of the page was an attorney called Ty Beard, a personal acquaintance of Nick's who founded and managed a private equity firm and dealt primarily with mergers and acquisitions, not defamation lawsuits. Again, I'm in no way a legal expert, but if you're going to conduct a lawsuit, especially one that was as high profile as this was set out to be, you better get someone on it who is specialized on that kind of lawsuit, not a random attorney.
Which is kind of ironic because I think that's what Nick generally says too, is hey, make sure you if you're gonna, I mean, with his own lawsuit, he went and hired the best First Amendment lawyer in the country, and so you would think that he would do the same for Vic.
The thing is, Ty was anything but random to Nick, but in order to really explain the relationship, I'll have to take a step back and make a significant detour here to tell you about a man named Lewis Walter Owen. Lewis was the founder and eventually president of a company called Petrofac, an international company worth hundreds of millions. Based on one extremely autistic, in a good way, KF users' analysis of stock exchange data, Lewis's shares of Petrofac were worth anywhere from $132 to $194 million, and that after he did $3.2 million of his shares to charity. From $110,000 donated to a university to around $800,000 donated through the Owen Family Foundation each year, totaling around $40 million as of 2011, meaning it's probably way more now. Lewis and his wife were very Catholic and donated a whopping $18 million to build a hospital that still carries their name to this day. And these are just a few of their charitable acts. Basically, they were the real-life Martha and Thomas Wayne, true philanthropists who spent their life trying to give as much money as they could to help their neighbor. So why is any of this relevant? Well, the person appointed and treasurer of the Owen Family Foundation was Lewis's daughter, Celeste, Nick Rekieta's mother. Lewis Owen passed away in 2018, followed by his wife just a year later, but he left behind a will, leaving his inheritance to his children. The executor of this will, who signed his name on the document, was none other than Ty Beard. Oh yeah, it's all coming together. You see, Nick has a history of claiming that he grew up in the worst neighborhood of Houston, Texas, and truly knew the streets as the OG white bread N-word. Additionally, he's claimed that his family's ability to afford all of their kids and homeschool them has nothing to do with having money, because according to him, they were already doing it when they were flat broke and unemployed before he went to law school. This means he's necessarily talking about the time period prior 2011 when he began law school. But there's a little issue with that. In comments sourced from a Rumble stream of his from October 2023, he bought a house for $269,000 in 2009, 2 years before law school. Wasn't he supposed to be dead broke and raising 2 kids at this point? But that's just the tip of this iceberg. In November 2018, around the same time Lewis passed, Nick bought a house for $650,000. And by the time the Vic lawsuit began, early 2019, he claimed he wasn't making any mortgage payments, suggesting the house had already been paid for. All of this information can be verified by checking publicly available information about him. Although I can't it here since it would technically constitute a dox. His streaming was doing very well, sure, and being a lawyer does pay well, but he does live in a rural area and probably doesn't have that many clients, especially considering his office never expanded or moved to a larger location. Based on what's available, there was never a stream of income that easily explained the purchase of either of his houses or him all speculation, and he publicly any significant amount of money. However, it's really hard to believe or understand. Back on track. Vic's $300,000, all of which went to waste since the suit failed catastrophically. Nick, on the other hand, was doing fine and dandy and went by completely unscathed. Moving on to cover the Rittenhouse trial, which gave his online presence another boom in popularity with over 100,000 live viewers at one point. His growth got to the point that the corporation responsible for streaming the trial footage he was reacting to sent him a cease and desist, essentially accusing him of copyright violation for restreaming their stuff, despite there obviously being a significant amount of commentary over it. Many things can be said about Nick Rekieta, but he was one of, if not the most successful content creator in his genre. Nick Rekieta was long established at this point, but the Rittenhouse trial really sent him up in an unforeseen way as far as his YouTube popularity. And fortunately, at this point, while his alcohol consumption was still present and often featured throughout the entire streams, the most it ever led to was Nick sounding a bit tipsy. Soon after the Rittenhouse boom came another one, the Amber Heard versus Johnny Depp trial, one of the most discussed trials in recent years and Nick's biggest claim to fame. His series covering the trial has 24 episodes, with most episodes running for well over 8 hours. The very last episode having over 1 million views and whopping 10 hours of video length. Just imagining the kind of obscene money this guy was making off of AdSense makes me sick, meaning please give it all to me. He wasn't already rolling in it at this point. He absolutely was now. The insane amount of traction his channel was getting began drawing the ire of other LawTubers, but nothing to write home about, considering his viewership and relevance far superseded anything they could say about him. However, things began getting serious when Nick commented on Alex Jones's trial regarding his statements about Sandy Hook, in which Nick said, "Sometimes it feels like freedom of speech is dead." Right around the same time, one of his Amber Heard videos got copyright strike by NBC, and when he disputed it, he wrote the following message: "NBC is a pile of human garbage. In fact, they use money and power to suppress the voices of the people they attempt to brainwash and spoon-feed their regurgitated bull on a daily basis. I imagine NBC's lawyers are actually reading this material and debating over real legal work, just wishing they were involved like the cucks they are. No one watching my content would ever actually watch the NBC video in virgin form because NBC is a lying heap. My content has the necessary expertise and background information for people to return an informed opinion on the matter presented rather than be spoon-fed apple juice from a bunch of communists." While the dispute did clear him of the copyright strike, he wasn't safe for long, as not long after, he received a terms of service strike for showing blood, which is more serious and will get you banned far more reliably than copyright. And as a result, he was suspended. A while later, while discussing the Kiwi Farms versus Keffels debacle, he got himself in hot water once again when, in a heated gamer moment, he suggested people like Keffels, in the context of distributing HRT for minors, should face the wall. I'm not saying he's wrong to criticize these people, but this was recontextualized as a death threat against trans people, and as a result, he got another suspension in terms of service strike, meaning his channel was now hanging by a thread, and his future live streaming on YouTube was increasingly unsteady. The stress he was under made his problem with
Jesus.
It doesn't look like much now, but it will.
alcohol even more intense than before, and now there were large portions of some of his streams in which he was audibly drunk, saying the kind of things that get you fast.
You better meet a
Eventually, he did get kicked off the platform for a third TOS strike that was supposedly due to Nick doxing people, but in reality was the result of a mass flagging campaign conducted by Keffels' followers. This event was covered by journalists who, recognizing Rekieta's importance on the platform as pretty much the originator of the genre of law-related YouTube content, highlighted the injustice of YouTube allowing this mass flagging campaign to succeed and lamented the possibility that Nick could even get disbarred for the death threat allegations. Even if that didn't happen, Nick hadn't been practicing law, as he was dedicating all of his time to the channel, which in 2021 pulled in over $700,000 in revenue, which is crazy for content that's completely unedited. Soon after this ban, he took up streaming on Rumble, where he was still pulling in live viewership at the tens of thousands. Fortunately for him, his ban from YouTube was lifted, and he returned in October 2022. Because of his brush up against trans activism and censorship, his reputation as a sort of conservative figure became even stronger than it already was. Oh, how little they knew. As early as July, there were signs that something strange was afoot, beginning with Nick having pictures taken of him getting stepped on by girls in cosplay at the Anime Matsuri convention. Granted, his wife was already there, and this could easily be a simple joke, but it showed a side of Nick that people weren't familiar with. At the time, the most this could be interpreted as was that, despite being a family man, he comfortably engaged with less than PG or edgy concepts. However, with time, it was becoming clear that he was a little too comfortable. The person he had managing his Discord server, for example, regularly posted extreme hentai to his main Twitter account that would whiten the hair of even the most powerful gooner. This tips people off that just maybe there was some activity going on in his server that wasn't so appropriate, and that suspicion was more than correct. Before I was on the Discord, I have to give context by explaining what Nick and his wife were doing on the platform locals. I can't really sugarcoat this. Pictures had surfaced of Nick Rekieta gripping a bottle with his butt cheeks. Likewise, pictures had surfaced of his wife doing that same thing, along with other lewd images of her. All of these made their way to Nick's Discord server, partly because they were relevant to the fact that they were pics of Nick and his wife, but also because the server had an entire chat dedicated solely to not safe for work pictures, something that flew in the face of the conservative image many people. When people brought this up as if it were an issue, he flippantly dismissed them, as if this wasn't totally incongruent with the rest of his online persona. One user said, "Listen, your wife posts pics of her booty online for strangers. This is the response bound to happen, so you're either in one of these positions. 1, you don't care, but you still talk cucks and make fun of men for not having loyal wives. 2, you do care, and you are a cuck who wanted her to post her act and get off on it. Or 3, you were overpowered by her macho strength, and she's the alpha. It just makes you look like a hypocrite." I think Nick made it out. This was something of a game changer since all of the people in his Discord were paid subscribers of his, meaning even his close following wasn't cool with what was going on. People began questioning his wife about this, to which she replied, "I like having fun. I think I have a beautiful body, and I love taking and sharing pictures. I wouldn't ever post actual nudes. I'm not fishing for compliments or trying to inflate my ego. Guys are proud of their cars and guns. I'm proud of the body I take care of. I'm having a good time, laughing with friends, and enjoying the beauty of the human body. Nick is my only partner. We don't fuck around. We aren't swingers. But I also don't care what other people do. It's none of my business. I'll let you be the judge of what that means." As for Nick, he eventually explained the bottle pics.
I have this locals live chat. Shout out to them. Pretty wild. It runs like 24 hours. Someone came up with this idea to do Wednesday, and people decided to post the bottle challenge, I guess. And I thought maybe like I should participate because a whole bunch of my people are sitting here like posting their, and so I took a joke picture of my and posted it in my locals. And now what I have learned about myself since then is not what I expected. I have learned rather than just having a skinny white boy, I am not a Christian. My wife is now and I am a cuckold watching other men have sex with her. Oh yeah, I'm a bad dad and my kids will be scarred for life.
This already looked pretty weird, but believe me, it gets worse. Let me ask you a simple question here. Do you know what a baldo is? You're about to find out. From mid to late 2022, for whatever reason, Nick found himself discussing the baldo multiple times, even reviewing it at one point. It's a kind of torture device looking toy that turns your testicles into a second shaft. Based on what I can glean from these, his baldo review was originally meant exclusively for locals, but quickly made its way to the hands of clip channels and Kiwi farmers who'd already become disillusioned with Nick. The main domino piece that had to be tipped over in order for Nick's reputation with his following to be dragged through the mud came in the form of a rather innocuous video in which Nick and his wife celebrated their 18th marriage anniversary. In it, they reveal they're on vacation in the Caribbean, but don't specify where or even what country in the Caribbean. As usual, we can leave it up to KF to schizophrenically investigate the most ridiculous things and succeed in doing it. There are a few posts going over the specific strategies they employed in order to figure out where they were staying, such as comparing nude pictures they posted of themselves to the marketing material of a certain resort called Hedonism 2, which was famous for harboring swinger parties. We obviously can't show the bottom of this picture, but the shape of the island on the horizon is similar, and the difference in sizes can easily be explained by photography. Eventually,
people went hardcore for Nick. God damn. Like, I never paid attention to any of this shit. Like, it shows how much little I actually knew about the shit that was going on with Nick. I had no idea about any of it. Like, I knew obviously he was on an island and all that stuff, and he said there's a new beach and shit, but you know, apparently like I didn't know diddly squat, apparently. Just fine, I don't care.
both Nick and his wife's Instagram accounts began following two male strippers by the names of Ricardo and Romaine, both of whom worked at Hedonism 2, and they followed Nick back. Honestly, I don't think this much schizo research was necessary since Nick was already well on the path to admitting it anyway. One example of his lack of concern about denying it and maintaining his image was when he got asked about hedonism during a live stream, and this is all he had to say.
Nick, did you see that conspiracy theory? And I had to know this because, I joke about this all the time. You talk about the baldo. Did you see there's an internet rumor about the hedonism where you were at a sex resort? I have to know. I've been looking. I have to know if that's the case.
It's simple. I don't talk about where I go, but all internet rumors are always true.
Okay.
Additionally, he openly admitted to doing MDMA and mushrooms during this vacation, which once again informed the audience of what kind of person Nick was becoming. A little while after the Hedonism 2 event came and went, another popped up. On December 15th, 2022, Nick said he was going with his wife to an underwear bar to celebrate his birthday.
You cannot get in if you're wearing clothes. You have to wear underwear. She's in underwear. I'm in underwear. We're gonna go have a blast. That's Saturday. Friday is karaoke night at the same bar. We're gonna go do karaoke night. We're gonna have fun, probably sing some songs or whatever. And then I don't know what we're gonna do the rest of the time because those are it's literally an hour out of each night that we're gonna do that. Other than that, I don't know. She's got a bunch of surprises planned for me.
Again, I have no idea why he keeps being so vague about this stuff since he's talking about embarrassing shit anyway. If you're gonna drunk blab about your private degeneracy in public, you might as well be specific because people are gonna figure it out. Once again, KF was on the job and correlated the underwear bar statement with a few other things he'd said about his birthday plans, eventually landing on a certain establishment called Gay 90s, which was the only one holding an underwear party at exactly the same time Nick was going to attend one.
Dude, Kiwi farms are fucking like intense. God damn.
In the same city Nick had claimed it was going to take place. The schizophrenia goes to another level when the same poster who collected this information managed to use Snapchat to find people who posted videos of themselves at Gay 90s during the time Nick would have been there, and they managed to find this clip with a somewhat recognizable voice talking in the background. Again, none of this is particularly damning were it not for the fact that Nick, for a very long time, made fun of cucks and joked about gay people from the perspective of someone who wasn't in line with those lifestyles. Now, he was attending underwear parties in gay bars and going to swinger resorts. Though this part is a lot less relevant compared to the previous revelations, Nick also decided to gift himself a Mustang GT 500. And though I'm sure he made a lot of money off of YouTube, we have to remember that a significant part of what's allowed all of this to take place was allegedly Grandpa Owen's tugboat money, whom I can only imagine is doing cartwheels in the grave. But being the derelict alcoholic he already was at this point, it comes as no surprise that within 48 hours of him having the Mustang, Dex, one of his main and longtime associates, revealed in the stream that Nick wasn't going to be streaming because he had driven his car off the road, presumably damaging the vehicle since it had to be towed away. Nick himself, however, doesn't seem to have admitted to this happening since his post about not streaming that night never mentions it. Despite having been visibly irritated by people's speculation about his midlife crisis, he tries to downplay it.
Nick, you're getting eviscerated by Kiwi Farms. You gotta chill, dude. Maybe you don't know. Kiwi Farms influence? That's what it is.
It's worth noting that at this point, one can frequently notice Nick is jittering during his streams. That's what happens to someone who is so frequently drunk that their body gets used to inebriation to the point that
Fucking ads, I swear to God.
whenever they're insufficiently under the influence, their body uncontrollably shakes. Meanwhile, Nick's YouTube career trudged on without much of a hitch, as the average viewer was still turning in to see things like his interview with Kyle Rittenhouse. However, the closer following was heavily disconnected.
That was a very boring interview. I'm not gonna lie. I was very bored with that Rittenhouse interview. God damn. Again, I never know any of this. Like, I knew about like the Mustang and the him crashing it stuff and all that, because I think later in a later stream he admitted to it and everything. But a lot of the swinger stuff, I just thought it was just people like that just made rumors, didn't really like pay attention. I'm not on Kiwi Farms. I don't want to be on Kiwi Farms or anything like that. So it was all this was kind of weird. Like learning about this all is weird. I'm a little hesitant about it. Now it's like seems more true.
From seeing what Nick was saying about his personal life, essentially rewriting himself as this libertine person who was never morally opposed to the things he was now partaking in.
Oh, no. Homie, I've always been a sex pervert.
It's also at this point that he slowly begins to lose weight, further worrying the people concerned for his health, especially since now he was open about doing other drugs besides alcohol. Whatever clout he retained with other content creators was soon to run out if he continued on his path of self-destruction. Right now, I'll take another brief detour to tell you about a rabbit hole that is Nick's relationship with someone named Mandy. For starters, here's a clip of Nick talking to them.
Mandy, if I were single, you would never be single again.
Pretty unusual stuff for a married guy to say in a public live stream, but that's just the tip of the iceberg. Mandy had been an avid super chatter since at least 2020, and a former follower of Nick's posted some lore to KF, saying, I can confirm that Mandy and one of the chat mods, C. Goody, were flirting, at least as far as them saying it in chat on Nick's night streams sometime around Rittenhouse. While we do have an archived comment from C. Goody confirming that they were at least close and on very good terms with each other, Mandy's relevance is made evident in one moment during a very drunk stream of Nick's in which he says,
Look, Mandy, I'm telling you this right now, Mandy, show up to Anime Matsuri. I will 100%. I will sign your tits.
This is some true hypergamy at work here. Mandy went from flirting with one of the mods to being one, all the way to flirting with a big man himself. Apparently, there was a strong push behind the scenes for Mandy to actually go to the Anime Matsuri thing so that their IRL meetup could happen. But Mandy was the one who had shut it down hard, according to one of the people who claimed to have familiarity with the inner workings of Rekieta's community. But much to his embarrassment and our cringe enjoyment about what I'm about to make you witness, it didn't stop at his awkward-ass flirting. It evolved all the way to him serenading Mandy during a stream.
Oh, Mandy, you came and you teased with the picture.
Eventually, all of this culminated in the clip I played earlier, where we can see Nick, a husband and father of 5, shirtless, nipples protruding, disgusting, gratuitously fawning over some random chick who's posting boobs in his locals chat. This was such a move on his part that it even got him to recognize that it was a mistake, and one of the miraculous instances of Nick expressing regret over an action of his. In Discord messages he exchanged with someone who had asked him about the weird parasocial and sexual relationship he was developing with his fans on locals, along with the rumors being spread on KF, he said, I've made loads of changes in everything I do since December. You know what I learned? No one cares. No one gets unpissed. The majority of people don't notice. Trying to fight people's fictions is exhausting and unproductive. There's a genre of fiction created about my life now, and it's wildly interesting, but reality is much more mundane. I'm a busy husband and father who has to balance the realities of a crammed family schedule with being an accessible member of new media. You bring up the Mandy thing. Yeah, it was a bad couple of minutes. And of course, I asked Alyssa, the owner of the Clips channel, to take it down. I was in a real shitty slump for a lot of reasons and exceedingly intoxicated. The fun side of streaming is that your worst moments have the same chances of being recorded as your best. That was a bad one and it hurt a lot of people. I could try and wrangle excuses for it, but I never have. My wife does not have an OnlyFans where she sells nude pictures or videos. Some people have a problem with pictures we post in locals, and that's fine. But frankly, I never found those pictures to be sexually suggestive or even that risque. For a brief moment, he seems to have become lucid about his excessive alcohol consumption harming his judgment. But the same can be said for the pictures he and his wife posted to locals. Again, not to judge, but I think you'll have a hard time saying that an up-close picture of a woman's butt in lingerie isn't risque. It's sad enough that Nick stooped this low in the first place for essentially no reason. He had nothing to gain.
Come on, we trash fucking OnlyFans girls who do that shit. That like, oh, I only post lingerie. They're like, well, you still help. So I mean, it's the same fucking principle. I remember those Ass Wednesdays. I thought they were pretty funny. And all that, but I never really posted myself because one, I got an ugly ass. Two, I'm not interested in that, in posting my ass. But I mostly subscribed to his local page just to support him. I never really participated much in it. There was some times where I participated here and there, but not much.
And everything to lose as far as his reputation went. However, it gets a little more sad and embarrassing when you discover that there's more to Mandy than meets the eye. For starters, Mandy suspiciously could never make her microphone work and take part in the voice chat, and that old picture of her boobs was discovered to be taken from a monitor as opposed to simply posted directly to the chat. This prompted the schizophrenic KF gumshoes to get on it once more, and they quickly found out that all of the pictures Mandy had ever sent were stolen from random places online, resized, and edited to make it look like it was taken from a bad Nokia phone. Eventually, it was discovered Mandy was from Israel and had played over 5,000 hours of Team Fortress 2. Upon finding this out, the immediate conclusion everyone jumped to was that Mandy was a man with a dick. A circumcised one at that, if the Israel thing is true. It's technically uncertain that Mandy is a man, but it was proven beyond the shadow of a doubt that they were a catfish, though I'm not too sure Nick would even care if his parasocial girlfriend came with an extra Frankfurter. Fortunately for Nick, this never resulted in some kind of big Mandy-gate moment and just continued.
Yeah, I never knew about this shit at all. I mean, the evidence is kind of like slim. It just might be she just is actually extremely ugly and doesn't want to post anything. And I don't know the significance about the gaming stuff. I don't fucking know. Does only dudes play those games? I don't fucking know. But anyways, but this whole Mandygate thing where she's actually a dude, I have no idea. Shows you how much a little I participated in any of this shit.
Continued to be discussed in KF. However, one threat, if we can call it a threat, did rear its head during August 2023 when Nick was sued. The validity of this lawsuit, however, is highly questionable because it was a RICO case, which, if you don't know, is the kind of lawsuit usually put together to break.
To get started in data analytics, you don't need previous experience or a degree. The Google Data Analytics Certificate
Fucking.
Pick up organized crime activity. In reality, it seemed to be a glorified defamation and hate speech thing dressed up as a RICO for whatever reason. And because of how stupid that was, it never really got off the ground. No, for Nick to be taken down with an injustice like this would be much too poetic, too heroic an ending for his story. It would take a martyr, and that he is not. He is a lolcow, plain and simple, and a self-made one at that, with more than enough opportunities to redeem himself or at least preserve his image by not exposing humiliating details of his private life at random to the strangers watching his streams. When he was given the opportunity to put his foot in his mouth and say something dumb that would make him look like a goofball, he embraced it wholeheartedly. For example, in September 2023, someone in his chat brought up the topic of how moms having OnlyFans can negatively affect their kids, as the children would be embarrassed that their parent had that as a job. Nick disagreed.
I think a lot of them just say, yeah, this is what mommy started doing, and it's why we go to Disney every year. I think that's what they do. I think they just tell them because they're gonna fucking find out. And I would assume that their logic would be, you know what? This is a very safe way for mommy to do this. It's how mommy puts food on the table. And so I can do this and work from home and be with you and hang out all day and we do fun trips, or I can go be a secretary and have people stare at my chest without paying me.
With this cope, the thread of prophecy was severed, and
What the fuck? I don't remember this. Sounds vaguely familiar, but yeah, no. The more I read, more I read into it, more to think that no, they're definitely getting bullied as fuck.
Nick chose to persist in the doomed world he'd created for himself. Reality itself decided that enough was enough, and it was time for him to meet the consequences of his actions and lifestyle. And it did so by invoking the cursed talisman of the Ancient One.
It says the stars are aligned, a new host is chosen. Hail unto thee, Nick Chan Rekieta. And then with that came this, and this was so weird because this came before the mention of Sonic in the trademark dispute that we were talking about last night. A Sonichu medallion has been passed to me. I don't know where this came from.
It was at this moment that his downfall became inevitable. In January 2024, Nick took part in a debate with Destiny, and though many people considered him to have won the debate due to his better understanding of the law, Nick was visibly worn down. His clothes looked too large on him due to weight loss, and his face was more sunken than usual. While he was remarkably sober during his interaction with Destiny, probably because he knew what he was getting into and didn't want to make himself look like a total idiot, none of this composure was found on his streams, which hit a new low.
Message you have for your haters. Thank you for showing up. Try being less poor. Have you ever considered the fact anybody who's willing to sit for hours and hours at a time from camera just so that maybe 5 people, but hopefully way more, maybe 500, maybe 5,000, maybe 5 people sit and look at them and go, God damn, what shit my.
Yeah, you look at him just now, like you can see, like look, his eyes are fucking sagging, like his eye, like he looks like shit. He really does. He really looks like a bunch of shit.
He'd never been this drunk out of his mind before. Additionally, around the Mandy incident, it seemed like he actually tried to back off from the alcohol, but evidently this effort wasn't very successful. He's incoherent, talking about random insane shit, almost like he's hallucinating. To add to the general sadness of the situation, he was now pretending to have some kind of deal with Rumble to make money off of his streams. Though it's very dubious this was the case, since at this point, his online presence was a shell of its former self, and even the normies had turned out, since his general wet-brained drunkenness turned every stream into an insufferable slog. In May,
oh my god, that was so true. Oh man, all his streams, it just it's the reason I stopped really tuning in. It's just because they ended up, we had a topic and then he'd go on a tangent for 30-45 minutes and never actually get to the topic, and I'm just like, well, I'm really like to hear this topic, and all I'm hearing is a bunch of crap that doesn't fucking matter. It was so fucking exhausting. It was so easy to derail him on his streams. Just send in a super chat and he just would derail like nobody's business. It was ridiculous.
All this came to a head, literally, as we're about to find out. Nick fires up the Nightmare stream, where he's in complete disarray, completely out of his mind, slurring his words, and constantly moving around in very strange ways. Many people thought back to his claim to have done, among other things, during his stay at hedonism, since there's some correlation between hard drugs and sensorial stims like rubbing your own skin. At one point, Nick received a super chat that contained a link to furry inflation fart. But due to being drunk past the point of recognition, he developed a kind of temporary form of Alzheimer's and went on to open this link 6 different times, reacting to it in a different way each time as if he was just seeing it. Unlike many of his streams that go on for almost 10 hours, this one fast approached its end at a mere 4 after this happened.
Oh, great heavens!
Funnily enough, even after this, he struggled for another half an hour to successfully shut his stream down. But obviously the damage was done, and his shameful moment was destined to be permanently immortalized. Nick had done a DSP, or had he? You see, the immediate assumption was that Nick decided impromptu to feel himself up, but the truth seems to indicate otherwise. Andy Worski, of all people, decided to do a deep dive into this catastrophic stream and managed to enhance the audio enough to catch that someone entered Nick's office, a woman who may or may not be his wife, but we'll get into that soon, and decided to give him, on stream. Tragically depressing and insane as the stream was, it may have
Seriously? That's the theory now instead? That's interesting. That's it. I need to watch that stream. That's interesting. I thought he whacked it off, and then he went on stream and said, "No, I wasn't whacking it. My arm was twitching because I have narcolepsy and shit like that, or whatever the fucking excuse was." Someone came in and gave him a head. That's fucking funny. That's funny.
Actually been the straw that broke the camel's back, as immediately afterward, the not so unthinkable happened. Nick was arrested due to a mandatory reporter's concerns regarding child neglect. The search warrant that led to Nick's arrest has since been published, and I'll be reading its relevant parts right now. Nick resides with his wife and 5 children, ages 6 to 16. The reporter indicated that 4 people from the church had gone to him, reporting neglect to the children.
Hi, we're visible. Getting set to travel this summer and need a wireless plan that'll keep you connected on the go? Do it with one line and unlimited 5G data.
Possible controlled substance abuse, and a questionable relationship with an additional couple.
I've already gone through this like 100 times, this report, so I'm not going to go through it now.
Following Rekieta's downfall, and as a matter of 6 or 7 times in the past. Aaron did a video blog where he said Nicholas needs help and needs to get help for his kids because of his substance abuse. Aaron points out a time in the video where Nicholas has a white powdery substance on his nose. On the next page, the officer also remarks that during the same nightmare stream, Nick takes an hour-long bathroom break at one point and comes back with what looks to be white dust on his nose. These bathroom breaks are news to the people following Rekieta's downfall, and as a matter of fact, they've discussed it as being aggressively longer since December 2023, going from 3 to 4 minutes to 6 to 8 minutes to frequent breaks over 10 minutes, indicating that this was
watching him live. It's just to be like, long periods of just silence. So I'd watch it like the next day, and then I could skip it or go two times speed. And then, when I could just skip the freaking giant ass break. It was ridiculous.
Nick doing drugs. The search warrant was approved and carried out, and we also have documents on how that went. The cops went to the Rekieta residence in the morning and happened to catch Nick driving as they approached. They stopped Nick and tried to enter the house with him, but he wouldn't provide them with a code to open the door. They proceeded to ram the door open, only to find the house in complete disarray, with clothes everywhere, dirty dishes, and dust. Keep in mind, 4 of the kids were in the house as this happened. All in all, they found 8 tablets of mean, over 25 grams of distributed in multiple baggies, 2 22 casing, a 6-hour AR, a bunch of mother which tested positive, and more unspecified firearms in the garage. Nick refused to speak about the drugs, but Kayla, presumably in an act of pure drug stupidity, asked the officers for her medication, and once they brought the prescription bottle she was asking for, they looked inside and found 2 unknown pills, and neither of which matched the bottle. Soon after the arrest, the mugshots were released, showing Nick with a black eye, Kayla looking completely strung out, and April, who was brought in with them. April, and by extension, the Imholt couple, are a can of worms in their own right, but as was noted in the search warrant, at first, they were just visiting each other, and something happened to prompt April and Aaron to separate, with April beginning to stay at the Reketas permanently, supposedly as a live-in girlfriend. The people following Nick closely noticed that something was different, as they often heard noises that weren't coming from him, and saw a person in the corner of his office who didn't look to be his wife. One KF user even speculated that it was April. When the arrest happened, April's husband, Aaron, happened to be streaming and reacted to it in real time as he found out.
This is big for the show. April has been arrested today with the Ricardis.
I don't believe that.
Is that her?
I don't think so. No, that's not. No, that's for sure been edited.
I remember seeing this happen. I mean, it wasn't very long ago, but I was like, where were you when Rekieta was arrested? I remember. I thought it was fake as fuck. I thought it was totally fake. I thought someone faked it up. And then you look, like, I couldn't believe it at all. I was like, Nick's arrested? No, I don't believe that at all. I thought it was a complete fake. And it turned out to be true. 100%. Obviously.
Other moment, Aaron went on to retell his experience with Nick.
I remember Nick ripping 2 massive rails right in front of me, and I literally put my hand on his shoulder, and I said, dude, you need to chill. I'm worried that you're going to die. No.
Look, I don't really believe anything Aaron and Multi says at all, because he's like the Schrodinger's alpha. On one hand, he's a sex god who Kayla was in love with and wanted to be with, and then on the other hand, he couldn't make his wife come. So, like, I don't believe pretty much anything Aaron says at all. And so, there's other people, like even Legal Mindset, who says, hey, there's some credibility here. There is some credibility here when it comes to XYZ, blah blah. I don't really believe much of what he says. I think he probably tells more lies than truth. And I think I think at this point there's a good chance that the whole swinger stuff and April is Nick's living girlfriend. There's a lot more to it now. Like, I think just recently there was talks. It was brought up that Nick and April were seen together at a DQ and all that, and without Kayla. So this whole swinging thing, it seems to be far more plausible than I originally thought. So I think that was true. Even maybe the Coke stuff might be true, but I just don't believe anything Darren says, because he's just so, like, at this point he's just trying to grift to to get some more to get some views. So I know I started off saying I don't believe anything Aaron says, and then saying, well, this might be true, this might be true. I just don't think the detail. I think he I think the swinging stuff, good chance that's pretty true, fairly true. And the Coke, Nick doing Coke is true. I just don't believe the Aaron, I was such a good person type spiel that he does. I think he's just as much of a shitty person as Nick is. And I haven't really paid attention to anything he says. This is the first I'm hearing a lot of stuff. When it comes to
No,
Aaron
don't
in
worry.
this
It's
video,
okay.
if
I've read
there's
up
any
about this
more
a
of it.
lot. I can show you all the literature and everything else. It's okay because it doesn't all hit you right at once. And I'm just like, what the another time I told him, I go, this guy, like, I'm worried about this. I remember telling him one time, I go, my wife is doing a lot, dude.
Many people reacted to Aaron's comments on the situation negatively, suspecting that he was a lot more involved with incentivizing.
Imagine hosting a charity 5K without high-quality custom t-shirts or a family reunion.
These behaviors and he claimed to be. In the wake of the arrest, people decided to estimate what kind of sentences Nick could be handed based on the laws in the state of Minnesota, ranging anywhere from 7 to 15 years. However, when Nick had his hearing, which was accessible online, meaning people were watching it, it was discovered that he could be facing over 26 years in prison. Other online personalities reacted to it too. For example, Dick Masterson, one of Nick's most steadfast allies throughout his entire career, admitted that it was indefensible, though people didn't take this seriously as many saw Dick as an enabler of Nick's, incentivizing him to go on doing drugs. Another person who entered the peanut gallery was Ethan Ralph, who first virtue signaled about having tried to get Nick sober in private, talk about the blind leading the blind, and then proceeded to sell cheap, shitty merchandise related to Nick's arrest. On the 24th of May, April had an early release, which many speculate is due to her cooperating with the government against Nick. This would be peak poetic justice.
Definitely.
Not only
No, she's definitely cooperating. I don't care what anyone says. She's definitely cooperating.
did the drugs get him arrested, but his side piece snitched on him, as if his entire lifestyle acted in unison to betray him. Just a few hours after April's release, Nick was also released on bail. As soon as he was out, he made a post to his locals saying, obviously a lot has happened. I'm sorry. For legal purposes, it must be reiterated that the sorry is for the disruption and is in no way related to any pending legal matters. That said, please realize that no one has the full story or picture of anything. It's possible no one ever will. Nothing reported is accurate, and that's not their fault. But this was far from the only time he spoke out after his release. Soon after, DMs he'd sent to a group chat, he was in leaked, claiming the neglect report was BS from someone who was out to get him. Funnily enough, when one of the people in the chat accuses him of doing at 8 a.m. while his kids are watching cartoons, the only thing Nick can be seen objecting to is the 8 a.m. part. The highlight of this set of DMs is when Nick says, and I'll obviously paraphrase to avoid getting demonetized, if you think my kids ever went hungry or were neglected, please phantom tax yourself.
What the sigma?
He keeps suggesting that this was some random person who decided on a whim to try and ruin his life when the list of people who attested to some degree of neglect just keeps growing. His congregation members, the mandatory reporter, the cops who conducted the arrest and actually saw both.
Yeah, it's a good point here. It's like, first it was just one person. They said some stuff. Then it turned into 4. Then it turned into, who knows how long it's going to be. It's kind of funny. Like it was just one person. It was a mandatory reporter. But then it turns out it wasn't just a mandatory reporter. It was 4 other people that were talking to him. And a lot of other people seem to talk to him because he goes to church, evangelical and all that. And they generally try to keep everything in the church. So it seems like a lot more people were, talking to Nick about some of the issues that he ignored. And it's ridiculous. Like the lies that Nick is spewing just seem to pile up more and more against it.
His kids in his house in complete disarray, and even Kayla's sister, apparently. However, if Nick is so confident in his stance here as he's portraying himself to be, why is it that he chose to pay the bail, which was set at $50,000, by the way, just so that he wouldn't have to do a drug test? Of course, it's his right to not get drug tested and all of that, but it's not exactly a secret he was on drugs, especially given the things found in his house. Another sign of Nick having some undisclosed hang-up with transparency regarding his situation is the fact that he could, at any moment, consent to the release of the arrest footage from the officer's body cam, but he didn't do that. Regardless, it's likely that after the release of this video, the footage will be made public, as Kiwi Farms' Null has already successfully raised the $6,000 necessary to pay for its release. Additionally, people were asking for court hearings to be live streamed, a position he himself added. Hearing should always be live streamed for the security of everyone involved.
One of the reasons that video is critical and should be in every single courtroom in every single case. Video and transparency of the courts is something I'm pretty passionate about. 1, because I'm self-interested in making money off of them. 2, because it protects the people from judicial abuse or abuse by the state. And 3, because it protects the citizenry from lies by people about the abuse of the state.
I'm honestly not sure if he still believes in this, though. A while after his locals post, he took to Twitter to address a few things, saying, I'm doing fine, given the circumstances. Getting things organized, reorganizing my studio, since I'm removing alcohol as a theme officially, and trying to reset my sleep schedule to be more daytime friendly. While this is a great sign he's recognized something was wrong with his lifestyle, he still adamantly denies any neglect ever went on, and I just hope that isn't a sign he's taking sobriety less seriously than he should be. While his decisions have been reprehensible, to say the least, to some extent, I feel bad for Nick. He fell for the lie that would him was due to some vindictive person trying to get at him, not his own fault for letting it get that bad in the first place. Of course, I feel much worse for his kids who are being put through all of this. Some of them understanding what happened since, as the warrant stated, the youngest is just 6 years old. He had everything a man could ever dream of, and still, it wasn't good enough for him. And in his pursuit of ultimate pleasure, he came dangerously close to his ultimate demise. Even if he doesn't see a day inside of a prison cell due to whatever legal ramifications may come from his trial, he may get disbarred, and his legitimacy as a lawyer and content creator is definitely tarnished for good, even if he does return to making the same content he used to make.
It's a good report. Shout out Turkey Tom for his background. So there we go. There we have it. That's the end of it. That's all we got. We're all done. Yeah, no, a lot of this next stuff is just fucking new as hell to me. It's fairly interesting. Hold on. But yeah, I didn't know a lot about this stuff. it's really disappointing to see. Like I said, I've been a big Nick fan for a while, and it seems more and more that he's just has a fall of grace. I don't feel bad for him at all. He brought this all upon himself, and it's all. So it is what it is. What can you do? It's not much you can do about it. But yeah, this trust fund stuff. It's like a lot of this stuff just makes sense. Because I remember always saying, it's like, it's kind of weird that you were able to go to school being a lawyer, and you never mentioned working a job, but you were able to do that and survive doing law school and all that for X amount while supporting a bunch of kids and stuff. It was weird to me. It's very weird. I didn't really think too much into it because I liked the guy. I like Nick a lot, and so I ignored that. But now it just turns out trust fund. All right, cool. No, but I don't begrudge the man for having a trust fund at all. I don't really care either. But it's very it just makes sense now. It just makes sense. We're gonna continue to cover the next stuff. Whenever the body cam footage gets released, I'm definitely watching the fuck out of that and commenting on that, because that's going to be the ultimate thing. Depending on what the body cam footage shows, that is going to be the biggest thing here. Because the body cam footage shows what a lot of people are thinking in the show. Nick is done. Nick is done. His public opinion's pretty much against him now, for the most part. There's probably a few holdouts here, but once that body cam footage gets released, and if it at all shows anything that people think it's going to show, Nick's done. Nick's done. So we'll see. All right. I hope you all have a good day. Hope you guys enjoyed this stream. We will be back Monday, and we will be checking out the debate that Andrew Wilson had on Biden and Trump. This time he's on the correct side. He's not being a traitor. He's actually on the correct side of defending Trump. And so we'll check that out. I hope you all have a good day. Peace out, and see you later. Peace.